to the Aaron Day Show. This show is about one thing: how you exit the system they built to own you. Your money, your mind, your body, your data. Every week, one concrete step you can actually take. Tonight is a big one. The Daylight Phone is here, and Hakeem Anwar from Above Phone is in the house to walk you through it. First, some music. Stick around. We go live at 6. This first one is called Canter Counter. It is about Howard Lutnick. He was on Epstein's Island. He is neck deep in the tether corruption. He is behind the tariffs, picking your pocket at the register. And we just learned he was the one who killed Claude Fable. Howard Lutnick is the swamp. Turn it up. Turn.
One! Gather round, lads. Gather round, lasses. I've a tale of the commerce, man's crooked asses. Howard wrote the number 4 times too high, 0.25 when the truth was a mile away in the sky. His boy at the canter counter with a grin, buying up the refund rights while the paper was thin. 20 cents on the dollar. Daddy says hold, while the son's in the back room raking in the gold. Lutnick wrote it 4 times high. Lutnick watched the country cry. Brandon bought the rights on the slide. Cantor took the payday pie. Raise a glass and move your money. Move your money, move your money. Raise a glass and move your money. To the carnival, goodbye. Wrote the letter, Wade and wrote another. Warren lit the fire, Ackman pulled the cover. Wired showed the memo, the scholars showed the math. The Supreme Court rang the bell, 6-3 for the wrath. 180 billion to the people they come, but the Cantor boys were waiting when the deal was done. Transfer to the sons, the divestiture a sham. The house was still a house and the crowd still a scam. Hey! Lutnick wrote it 4 times high. Lutnick watched the country cry. Brandon bought the rights on the slide. Cantor took the payday pie. Raise a glass and move your money. Move your money, move your money. Raise a glass and move your money. To the carnival, goodbye. They'll tell you it was legal. They'll tell you it was clean. They'll tell you divestiture was everything it seemed. But the platform's still the same, and the family's still the name, and the terminal still clears what the Cantor boys arrange. I pulled my money from the bank last Tuesday, put it in a credit union down the bay. Buying bread from the baker, where the names are owners. Coffee down in Zano, where the grid ain't theirs. Neighbor runs the mesh, co-op runs the bread. Building parallel systems while the carnival is dead. Raise a pint to the exit, raise a pint to the door. Howard keeps the carnival, I won't be there no more. Lutnick wrote it 4 times high. Lutnick watched the country cry. Brandon bought the rights on the slide. Cantor took the payday pie. Raise a glass and move your money. Move your money, move your money. Raise a glass and move your money. To the carnival, goodbye.
Next up, Let Him Fly. This is for Roman Sterlingoff, the man they caged for writing code. Writing software is not a crime. Let him fly.
Born in Russia, raised in Stockholm, Bitcoin made me young and free. I flew to California to learn to fly a plane for me. Landed in Los Angeles with my laptop and my life. Men in dark suits waiting at the gate, never made it out that night. Let him fly, let him fly. He came to learn to fly. They locked him in a cage for a tool nobody understood. Let him fly, let him fly. They took my diaries, they took my drives, searched every password and folder of my life. Found nothing in the wreckage, no server logs, no keys, just a company's theories and a judge who wouldn't see. 395 million is what they say I owe, but I had 1.8. I guess they didn't know. Let him fly, let him fly. He came to learn to fly. They locked him in a cage for a tool nobody understood. Let him fly, let him fly. Let the pilot fly. The defense asked me under oath, am I aware of scientific evidence that this software works? I am unaware. I am unaware. I am unaware of scientific evidence. This software works. I came to fly. I came to fly. Let it fly. Let it fly. Let it fly. Let it fly. Let him fly. Let the pilot touch the sky. 12 and a half years for a crime they couldn't prove. Let him fly. Let him fly. Let Roman fly. Roman Sterlingoff, Fort Dix, May 12th, 9:30 in the morning. Let him fly. Let him fly. Let him fly.
They call us enemies of the state. We call it telling the truth. This one is enemies of the state.
you hear the promise breaking on the president's hill? I ran the embassy in Keene, where the small bills changed their hands. 8 years for digital cash, for laws written before the networks stand. Do you hear the seven calling, calling from their cages still? Free and freemen, free them all, pardon them all, before the bell. 50 million and a gag order. The judge took my voice with my gold. Roger Veer in the Spanish hold. The bill is not paid, the truth still untold. Do you hear the seven calling, calling from their cages still? Free Roger Veer, free them all, pardon them all, before the bell. Sterling Golf stood on the map, 12 and a half on a black box. Roman Storm wrote the contract, 40 years on the table. Keown built the wallet, Christmas Eve, Morgantown. William wrote privacy at 67. 4 years from Lisbon, Ray banked the unbanked. Schools in his name, deported. Do you hear the seven calling, calling from their cages still? Free them all, free them all, pardon them all, before the bell. Code is free speech, said the director. The war is over, said the acting AG. But the cages stayed locked when the speeches ended, and the world watched the promise become a lie. Senate 52-49, the House about to flip. End the war or lose Congress, pardon them all, before the bell. You pardon Ross, the seven are still on. America won't leave the world in crypto. If it cages its innovators. Do you hear the seven calling, calling from their cages still? Free them all, pardon them all, before the bell. The code outlives the warden. The code outlives. The code outlives the warden. Free Ian, free Roger, free Ronan, free Storm, free Keown, free William, free Ray. Pardon them all. The code outlives the warden.
This next one is called When the Cameras Left, the Cameras Move On. The fight does not. Watch this.
Six in the morning, he heard the boots, the radio man in the small New Hampshire town. 8 years they gave him for digital cash, 8 years for what he taught the small bills. You said the war was over, but Till said code is free speech. But the seven still wake up in cages, and we don't forget when the cameras left. When the cameras left, when the cameras left, the cages stayed locked. Cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech. Walk them home. In the war or lose Congress. Roger 50 million in a gag, his voice in the vault. Sterling Goff 12 and a half on the black box code. Roman Storm 40 years on the table. Street, trial and fall. Keon built the wallet. Christmas Eve they came. William wrote privacy at 67, Lisbon to a cell. Ray Bank, the unbanked, deported schools in his name. Money transmitter laws in the Bank Secrecy Act. Wrote the privacy down, the case shut the fact. You pardon Ross? You said the rest were coming. Senate 5249. The house about to flip when the cameras left. When the cameras left, when the cameras left. The cages stayed locked, cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech, walk them home. End the war or lose Congress. America won't lead the world in crypto. If it cages its innovators, the code outlives the warden. The signal can't be stopped. When the cameras left, when the cameras left, when the cameras left, when the cameras left. Cages stayed locked, cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech, walk them home. End the war or lose Congress. The code outlives the warden. Free Ian, free Roger, free Roman, free Storm, free Keon, free William, free Ray. When the cameras left, the code outlives the warden.
That is the music. The show starts now. Aaron Day and Hakeem Anwar, the launch of the Daylight phone. Let's go. We're back on the Aaron Day Show with returning guest Hakeem Anwar, and today is finally the exciting day. We've been talking about this for months, and I've been talking about this on multiple episodes, and we're finally officially releasing the above phone Daylight version of the phone. And so today we're going to walk through what it's all about, how it works, and why actually we're even doing it, and how it maps to the overall strategy for the Daylight Freedom Foundation and all the various things that we're working on. And so a lot of this, actually, even between the time we're pre-recording this, so there are going to be some changes to the way some of these websites work and how they operate between now and when this actually goes live. But we'll hit on the key points in any event. And in fact, let me share my browser. And the truth is, I haven't even launched all of these sites yet. I haven't launched the new Own Nothing site. So most people are going to be seeing this for the very first time, unless they happen to, be looking through and clicking through the various links. But I've not actively promoted this site at all. But the big area and direction that we're going in is to move towards action, to empowering people to take back control of their lives, to improve their sovereignty in actually 10 different areas. You see on the screen here at ownnothing.org, 9 areas, but we're actually going to add a 10th, which is AI. And so, I've watched a lot of these other podcasts, and Hakeem and I were just at the Libertarian Party National Convention, which was a conversation for another day. But there are a lot of movements or podcasts they're all about talking about problems, or talking about the political problem, or at this point, some of these things have become meta conversations where it's not even about the problem, it's about podcasters fighting each other for their various views about a various problem. But no one's actually doing anything. I've actually looked at a lot of these podcasts and I say, well, what do people actually get out of this? What do you get out of the latest rant between, Candace Owens and whoever it is that, she's Nick Fuentes or whatever? When you watch that content, at the end of the day, how does that move the needle? How does that improve your life? And so all of the various sites that we've created, and there are now 7 of them in total, are all designed to either empower you with knowledge about the threat of technocracy, which is critical, which is actually something that most people are unaware of in terms of the magnitude. People are starting to wake up about data centers, but data centers are only the tip of the iceberg. It's only one part of the technocratic threat. So waking people up to that, but then the next question becomes, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, you're not going to vote your way out of it. What you can do is take very specific actions to withdraw your energy from these technocratic systems, but move them into something else. And that something else doesn't have to be, by the way, which I see a lot of, this kind of bunker mentality of, we're gonna have our own, intentional community, and we're gonna fortress, create our own little fortress or whatever. And I'm not saying that those are bad ideas, but kind of, there is another alternative out there beyond, everyone's knitting their own clothes and growing their own food. There's a different kind of model moving forward. So what we're providing now are tools, actionable tools, to help people in these 9 domains, and the 10th being AI. And I'll go through and just kind of list them off now, but then we're going to go through them one by one and actually talk about how the above phone actually helps improve in each of these domains. And this is actually why I'm launching the phone, because after years of doing workshops, trying to onboard people to crypto, doing a whole bunch of these things piecemeal, I will tell you, it's very time consuming. The amount of time and money and effort just to do a workshop for 100 people in a different location is massive. And so we're facing this big technocratic threat, and we need to be able to move quickly. And frankly, it's not going to work, a 50 or 100 person workshop at a time. We need to be able to scale this up, and we need to be able to scale up. I mean, I did 4-hour workshops just on technocracy, and then kind of onboarding you to a couple of different wallets. And as you'll see, if you get one of these phones, you actually are immediately powered up in more than just having, 1 or 2 different crypto wallets. This hits all of these areas. So the areas are owning your own mind, which at the end of the day is the most important of all. People need to reclaim their cognitive liberty. They need to reclaim their free will and realize that, you are in control of your own life and your own decisions, your own thoughts, emotions, and actions. Own your own privacy, own your own money, own your own attention, own your own body, own your own food, own your kid's future, own what you bought, and own your own word. And then the last one now being own your own AI, which I now think is critically important enough to put as its own domain because of how now omnipresent this is. And, there are a lot of people that still look at AI as, it is a bubble in some respects. Some of the data center stuff is a bubble, but AI absolutely is going to impact in probably a larger way than any other technology everyone's lives. And so the question is, are you going to be using AI in a passive way that is driven by big tech where you're the product, or are you driving AI to enhance your thinking and enhance your life in a way that you control and where you control the data? And so we're making it its own 10th point. So with that point, I think we're going to go through these. I don't know, Hakeem, what do you think is the best way to go through this? Do you want to do a general overview of the phone, or do you want to jump in on each of these point by point?
Yeah, Aaron, it's so good to join you, man. And I will say that this is a pretty pioneering moment for our phone because we've never had any sort of crypto app on it whatsoever. We've just never wanted to pick a side. There are so many different projects out there. But I think what's been great working with you is getting to see the other dark side of crypto. And you've opened my mind to those things. And so I'm really excited that we can be partnering together with a lot of major players who are aligned in principles. So the apps like Zano are on this phone. And that's really, really exciting to me because for the first time, we're not competing. We're working together. We're collaborating. And that's exactly what it's going to take to shift over millions of people to private technology. So yeah, just a brief intro. I'm Hakeem. I'm the CEO of Above Phone. We've known Aaron for more than a year now. And we're excited about this project. This is a custom edition of our standard above phone, which is a de-Googled phone based off of GrapheneOS. De-Googled means that it makes zero connections to big tech. That's our promise to you. We audit that. We verify that on a regular basis. But still, it's easy to use. It already comes with everything you need, including all these awesome apps that Aaron has developed for you along with his team. So yeah, I think we could start with the 9 areas, maybe go through them one by one. And starting with Own My Mind, which I really love that that's the first one, because you mentioned earlier, it's like, what are we spending our time and attention on? Are we just watching beefs between Candace Oven, Bongino, all these talking heads who like really are doing nothing? So yeah, owning your mind, it really does start with that one. Let me bring the phone up on screen so you can see it. So you guys see that? There we go. Cool. The daylight phone. So, yeah, the first thing you're going to notice about the phone is that there is no ads on it whatsoever. So I could go to any of the apps. I could even go to YouTube and watch one of Aaron's videos. Here, let me search for Aaron Day. Here we go. And perhaps on a normal YouTube app, it would actually start playing an ad right before you start. And it'd be trying to get you to buy whatever product for depression or a weight gain or anything, right? Just trying selling stuff to you. But on this phone, you're going to find that there's no advertising whatsoever. Even in the web browser, there is very little advertising. So if I search for something, I'll just search for the same thing, daylight freedom. Normally, you search on any other phone, you're going through big tech search engines. And guess what? The first few results are not going to be what you searched. They're going to be ads trying to sell you something with companies that paid good money to get those ads in front of your face. That's why advertising is a billion-dollar industry. Well, hey, not on this phone. There are multiple different layers that protect your mind, filter out the ads, and even block it on the VPN level. It's actually blocking all of the advertising infrastructure that will normally show you ads. So that's one thing you're going to feel is like, whoa, I have my mind back. I'm not constantly being probed by messaging or advertising. And it feels really, really good. So I love that you started with Own My Mind. That's a big spiritual aspect.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to jump in and out here. Yeah, so we're very excited about this. And again, we had Hakeem on, and I encourage you to look at our prior interview, which I think we were talking a lot about digital IDs. So, I mean, we are incredibly aligned, I think, on both kind of the ideology, the threat here, and so forth. And I'm excited. I'm using the phone myself. My wife and I both have one of these phones, and we've been using them now for I don't know, a couple of months, and it's a phenomenal phone. I was actually surprised. I have better cell phone service where I am, which kind of surprised me. I'm not going to like spoil that. We can get into some of the other aspects of this, but
that's super common, right? Like we have this expectation because it's big tech, Apple and Google. They have these billions of dollars that your experience is not going to match up with an alternative phone. But, you know, that's actually not the case. Like there's a lot of enshittification happening behind the scenes, making your phone slower because the bandwidth that it'd normally be using is now being used to run ads or to run surveillance. So, yeah, that's great. And, you know, I really encourage, it's great that you and your wife, Aline, are using it and collaborating with it because, you know, that's really what it's for. It's for those sacred relationships where you keep everything private. So you can talk about real things. And unfortunately nowadays, you know, there's a lot of activists, there's a lot of people who are doing something, but they would not be able to keep their plans private to themselves. So we need more people using these phones.
Absolutely. Great. Do you want to move on to privacy?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a good segue into owning my privacy. So state unpermitted channels, surveillance exit. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm actually working on a piece now talking about a lot of this honeypot privacy infrastructure that I see, like, for instance, Signal or Tor. which that's the first thing that you'll hear recommended by any big YouTuber. Oh, you want to have more privacy? Use Signal, right? It's just checking off the box. Here you go. Here's a get private quick pill. But that's not the reality of the situation. Is a lot of these privacy solutions that are touted by people, there's not critical thinking happening about who made the solution, who's it funded by. So when you look at Signal and Tor, and I'm making videos about this on my own channel called Take Back Our Tech. But when you look into who's behind it, you find, oh crap, it's the government. The government is making my privacy tools. And I don't know about you, but I thought seeing government-based or intelligence agency mass surveillance is the reason why privacy movement started to flourish, since the Snowden revelation. So state unpermitted channels. Yes, that's so true. Let me bring the phone up. So instead of using Signal, we have different solutions like XMPP. Now, XMPP is a federated messaging protocol. That means it's kind of like email. You sign up to a server, and then you can send encrypted messages to anyone on the XMPP network with something that looks like an email. Not only can you send messages, but you can do voice calls, video calls, you can send files. There's many, many cool ways you can use this for yourself. You can even bridge this out to the phone network, and then you could start dialing people. You can start dialing people internationally. You can use the same app I'm using right now, and you can send them text messages. You can call them. So, and you do all of that without a SIM card. So this internet phone number is a way to break past having a cell service even, and starting to take back your privacy. Now, the end-to-end encrypted messaging as a part of XMPP, that's what's going to keep you the most private, but there's many tools that you can use on the phone. So you get to start to own your privacy that way. There's also private ways to download the apps that you would normally use. So here is something called Aurora Store. This will allow you to download apps from normal app stores that you would normally have to sign into your big tech account, your Apple or Google account. But instead on this one, you get an anonymous account, and you can start to download anything without needing an account. And again, y'all, you know where these identifiers are leading. You know where your Google and Apple account are leading. They already know your identity through your credit card. Soon, they will become your digital ID. These players are going to be the ones rolling it out. They already have Google Pay, Apple Pay. It's accepted at the airports with Google Wallet and Apple Wallet. Where do you think this is going? So we need to do our best to separate our identities from the devices we use. This is going to be a big deal in the years to come. So by not having to sign into an account, you are kept anonymous. You actually own your privacy. Thoughts on that, Aaron? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, there are a lot of other, it's almost hard to go into all the different privacy features on this phone, but I think we're using VP.net as a VPN. At least I know I'm using this on here as well. And there are a lot of other apps. Do you want to talk about some of the other, we're obviously we'll talk about the daylight apps that I'll go through that in a bit, but I'm impressed with the collection of apps that are on here. So if you want to walk through that would be great.
Yeah, right on. So we've gone ahead and found the best free and open source apps that you can even use on an alternative phone. So I'll just show you a few of them. So without ruining them, because we have other sections to go to, these apps will typically all work offline. So let's look at one of them for podcasts. So here you go. Here's something you can use to find podcasts. But the difference is that you're not going through a third-party service. You're actually connecting directly to the podcast index. So if I want to search for the Aaron Day Show, Aaron Day, here we go. Here we are. I'm subscribed. And check this out. I could just download the entire episode, and it's going to download in a few seconds. Boom, there it is. And now I have it on my phone. I don't need to be connected to the internet. I can just listen to this. So yeah, this is his May 15th show, right? You saw how easy that was. Imagine doing that for all of your content creators, which fits in with other principles on there. There's also, in addition to the apps, which are all free and open source, there's also these privacy features is you get to break down which permissions your apps are actually using. So for example, you have control of the microphone and camera for each individual app. But not only that, you can actually go down into your photos and videos and choose, hey, I only want this app to have access to one particular folder on my device. So instead of it on a normal phone, you give it access, you give an app access to your entire phone. That's ridiculous. You give it access to your entire phone. On this phone, you can choose, pick and choose what you want to give it access to. So this is a way to allow yourself to use, you can even start to use some of these junk food apps. Some of our customers in Latin America, they have to use WhatsApp, right? There's everyone there, down there uses WhatsApp. So they're able to use WhatsApp, but minimize their exposure, maximize their privacy by limiting what WhatsApp can do. So yeah, those are a few more features. Like you're going to have so much more control of your permissions. They have to ask your permission to set their permissions. So really, you're going to be off to a really good start. And again, you don't have these God level centralized software services from Google and Apple that are watching everything that you do.
Yeah, I mean, and what are your thoughts about the direction of what's going on now with digital IDs, with age verification? My wife told me that, I think she was logged into X or something today, and it did, or Grok wanted to know her age. Like it seems every day, either an app that I'm using is asking for more information, or I'm hearing about countries all over the world that are trying to impose essentially these digital IDs using protecting children and age, so forth. But what do you see the trend as being right now?
Yeah, I see it coming quickly everywhere, and the age checks are a part of it. But the countries that don't have a mandatory digital ID program, we're quickly headed in that direction. And as I've said before, 2027 is going to be a very big year for that. That's the year that digital ID becomes a mandated option in the EU. So every company must be willing to accept digital ID. That's the same for Australia. I'm going to assume, I'm feeling that our digital IDs here in America, mainly Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, the e-passports that you can get to prove your identity to the TSA, those will also become more mainstream in 2027. And so this is, again, people must remember that digital ID is just the first foundational pillar of a system called digital public infrastructure. So what comes after digital ID is digital payments and also information exchange. So anything that you do in your life, whether it's paying for parking on the street or buying something from a website, these big companies are all working hand in hand to require your identity for it. And we need companies that are speaking out against it and offering you alternatives. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but we're one of the only tech companies that are speaking out about digital ID. How many companies have taken a philosophical opposition to it? Not many. And we need to just raise this vibe and demand that from the companies we want to support. So I think soon everyone will have a choice. It's either, hey, you go to your Fortune 500 big box retailers, like I'm talking grocery stores, which will require your digital ID to enter after a certain point in time. May not be this year, it may not be next year, but that's the direction we're headed. And you need to make sure you have all of your contacts on your phone, peer-to-peer, so you're never going to have to comply.
That's critically important. And I know last time you were on, we were actually talking about this because you wrote a lengthy research report on the state of digital IDs. And I think we both came to the conclusion, you certainly had more research than I, that 2028 is really the target date around the world for people to have, for countries to have kind of this interconnected digital ID system in place. And it is moving faster than people realize. And you mentioned that is digital IDs are the founding pillar, but then digital payments are next. And so that's really the third pillar here, is that you should own your own money. And this is really exciting for me. Obviously, I've started my venture here 3.5 years or so ago talking about CBDCs and have since kind of transformed into, being privacy coin only as being kind of the direction that I've gone into. And so but one of the problems with privacy coins has been usability. And I'm just going to say this flat out. It's some of the tools and some of the wallets out there have been somewhat difficult to use. And a lot of the technology has been in development for a while, where there's been a lot of work done under the hood. But in terms of the front end user experience, it wasn't quite there. Now, we'll get to this when we talk about some of the things that we've launched. I've launched ditchthedollar.com, which is one of the apps, as well as a newly designed Freedom Forge. But the idea behind this is we've created tools to help onboard people to these wallets. And as I've mentioned before, we've done these workshops that take 4 hours or whatever to go through. This phone actually shortcuts a big part of that right off the bat, because it comes pre-installed with a couple of crypto wallets built in, including Bitcoin.com and the main Zano wallet. And I will say this, because I haven't talked about this yet on the air on my podcast. This is something that came about as I was putting together the materials, the tutorials, and working through kind of what is now, as of today, the easiest way to onboard somebody to privacy coins. Like, if you don't have crypto at all, how do you get somebody from zero to being able to buy their first crypto, convert it to a privacy coin, or take a crypto like Bitcoin or Ethereum and make it private, and to figure out how to start accepting cryptocurrencies as a payment option, so on and so forth. And I found that Bitcoin.com has really emerged as, so far, the easiest solution for this. And so this is a new development. And so we have the Bitcoin.com wallet pre-installed on the phone.
That's right. And so both the Bitcoin.com wallet and Zano are on here. And what's really cool about it is that it's in something called a private space. So this is an area of your phone that is completely separate from your main phone. Well, why would you want that? Why is that important? Well, of course, you want to keep your crypto private, right? If someone snatched your phone out of your hands, this is what they would see. They wouldn't even see your apps. They wouldn't see your Bitcoin.com wallet. This could save you in circumstances where you need it. We know that Bitcoin crime is on the rise. But as Aaron was saying, that this is one of the easiest ways to get started. You can see the apps are already pre-installed. They've never been turned on before. So you can go in and you'll do your first time setup here. It'll go through and ask you to create a new wallet. So here we go. See, this is the first terms of use for the Zano wallet. That's great. We can also do the same for the Bitcoin.com wallet, which I have not used myself. Here we go, though. We're on the main page. Obviously, we don't want to sign in with Google. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't even work on our phone anyways. So you can put in your email here, and you can just start using it, right off the bat. So this phone will make it really easy, and it's already set up to be as private and secure as possible, completely hidden off of your main phone, while still being accessible if you need to open it. So yeah, I'm with you there, right? Like we talked about getting to know your neighbors and your community, but this is a really easy way to start. And maybe, Aaron, what you and I can do is we could do a short little webinar series that goes over all of the different apps on the phone.
I'd love to do that. And in fact, I mean, that's one thing. I'm going to be changing the format of this podcast as well, so that every week there's a new kind of action step or something that we're showing people that they can actually do. So I'd love to do that. But also the Ditch the Dollar app and the Freedom Forge app that are also pre-installed on this have the instructions. So you have the wallet already installed, and then you have the Freedom Forge app, which will actually show you how to go through each of the steps in setting up your wallet. And it shows each of the individual screenshots. You'll see there are a bunch of different rungs and tutorials on there that you can go through and see exactly what's going to be on the screen as you're going through that setup process. Because I've found A couple of things. So, and doing the workshops and everything else, there are a lot of video tutorials out there, but I've found that if you're introducing new people to this, it's kind of difficult to watch a video when you're trying to go through the different steps in an app. And in fact, I'm going to even turn these into PDFs because a lot of people like to even print this stuff out when they're going through it on their phone. So the whole idea here has been to design tutorials that are really easy to use step by step and don't require going back and forth with a video. But yeah, we should also do the webinar series as well and get people's feedback, because there's been a lot of interest in this phone over the months. A lot of people have been waiting for it and are very excited about finally having the opportunity to get set up. And frankly, there's so many apps, the series could go on and on and on. Like, it's amazing how much stuff you can actually do on this phone. And just, as an example, something like, and I learned this a while ago, but I mean, even in 2020, when COVID hit, one of the first things that I did was I did a series of podcasts every night. I was doing one literally every night until I got shadow banned. And that took about 14 days. It actually took less time than that. It took a week, and then I kept going anyway, but I was rate limited with like 50 people. But the whole point of even at that time is this is before we even had the censorship industrial complex. This was March of 2020. And I was telling people then, you need to start finding alternative communication. And I mean, I was suggesting things like Proton and, Signal at the time, which is, but I was also encouraging people to use cryptocurrency, to use Odyssey instead of Facebook. But then I think you have Jitsi on the phone, which is a lot of people aren't familiar with, but Jitsi is an open source, basically version of Zoom. And this was one of the tools that I started promoting in 2020. And so I think it'd be very helpful to go through and do this, because people don't know that most of these apps exist. And I think they'll be blown away when they see how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Jitsi is absolutely a killer app that can replace Zoom. It could also replace phone calls entirely, right? So here we go. I'm just setting up my permissions here. Here I am, Hakeem, and I can join in to a meeting. And then as soon as I'm into a meeting, then I get a link that I could start to share with other people. So I can use that link and I can just text it to whoever I need to. So it could be by text message or by XMPP message or whatever you want. And then this person, your person that you're talking to, doesn't need an above phone. They don't need a daylight phone. They can use it on their iPhone. They can use it on their Mac computer. Anyone can join from anywhere, right? So that's the difference. Whereas big tech likes to get you on services like iMessage or Google Hangouts, and then you're locked into that platform. You have to be a part of it. Services like Jitsi and this ecosystem that we're creating are universal. You can go in, you can go outside the garden and still do things. So yeah, Jitsi is absolutely great. I also want to share our suite of privacy services that once you go to check out the phone, you'll have an option to purchase them, and you'll get access to a private video conferencing server. This is Above Suite. This is our suite of software services where we have the encrypted chat, the internet phone number, the email and calendar, the file sharing and video conferencing, and a search engine, as well as knowledge and support on how to use all this stuff. So this is kind of like the final layers. There is also a VPN, so you'll have some options if you end up getting this, but I also encourage you to check out vp.net. And frankly, most of the time, because this phone has features like having the ability to create multiple profiles, like multiple users on the phone, it helps to have multiple VPN accounts. So the more the merrier. I really like what they're doing as well. So yeah, this is the final layer of your communications. It's not just enough. Yes, you've replaced your phone. Now you're off the grid when you travel around and when you browse the internet, but you also need to replace your communication and those for the people you love. And yeah, Aaron, you saw it popping off way early in COVID. They are trying to shut down our communication. So just wait in the future when we have Project Bluebeam or the aliens come out. You're going to find that it's very hard to communicate on big tech platforms.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that they put in place that people don't talk about, like contact tracing, I mean, literally, they're using your cell. During the middle of COVID, all of a sudden you would get this. Here's an update to your terms of service, and so on and so forth. And now all of a sudden they're tracking your location, and they're using that to send out alerts and determine, who may or may not need to be quarantined. Well, do you think they removed that? They did not. So, whatever happens next, we have all of the surveillance that was added during COVID, plus everything that they've been adding since. They haven't stopped at all, even though there's no emergency. The surveillance state has absolutely grown. So that's very exciting. The next area is Own My Attention. And actually, the first time I saw Hakeem give a talk was at the People's Reset, which was a great event, Derek Brose's event in Mexico. And you gave a talk that was about kind of attention, which kind of does fits into owning your mind and owning your attention are somewhat related. But I was really impressed with what you laid out there. Do you? I mean, I don't want you to go through rehash the whole thing. But do you want to talk about maybe some of the concepts from that talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a good time. That was a while ago, 2 years ago. And that talk was special because finally had been talking about privacy for several years, but I became aware of like the mental and spiritual aspects of this phone use, where it is a portal. And unfortunately, big tech companies and social media companies have totally been finding ways to hack your brain. Yes, I'm not kidding around. They would literally like to hack your mind and hack your attention. As Yuval Noah Harari says, humans are hackable. Well, this is what they mean. And that's why nowadays you have TikToks and short form video content. All the social media platforms are now doing shorts, right? 10 seconds or less. You know why it's 10 seconds or less is because now you have a dopamine spike every 10 seconds. And you are literally gambling based on what you're going to see next on your feed. So it's a way to suck people in. And I argue that that's even more dangerous than simply knowing everything about anyone on the surveillance side. But when you can completely capture their attention and scramble their mind with the content you create, that's the worst. That's the worst possible outcome. So this phone does not have any algorithms built in. And although you get the social media apps to start doing that stuff, this phone is muted for it's muted against that type of activity. So again, there's no advertising, there's no big tech messaging, and there are all alternatives to social media which doesn't have those feeds. For instance, our player, give me a second here, it'll load back up. So when I start watching Aaron Day clips, it's not going to immediately go from this video and start auto playing the next one, so you don't have any control, right? It's kind of bingeless. You can't really binge on this phone. It's a bit of an organic experience, and that is better for your mind and your heart.
Well said. I mean, obviously, we determine what we allow to come into our consciousness. And I don't think we realize the degree to which this is happening through algorithms, whether it's, not only the ads, but then even how they curate the playlist and what plays next. And so this is critical. Owning your attention is directly linked to owning your own mind. And the next pillar is own my body. So I don't know if you want to speak to that. I will speak to the fact that we have the OSARA app on there, which the OSARA is, it's going to be morphing, but at a very quick level, there are some things that you can do to start taking back your health. Now, this addresses some of the surface areas, like for instance, in the United States, every minute someone files for medical bankruptcy. Every single minute. And 75% of those people have health insurance. So this isn't just a case of, poor people that don't have insurance. It's mostly people that are insured that are losing their assets and they're losing their homes. And this is largely because of how just horrendously and fraudulently structured the healthcare system is. So in OSR, we're promoting the idea of, first and foremost, forming a medical trust. So we have in there a whole kind of section on, first signing kind of a pledge to do these things, because I think it's helpful for people to put their intent out there. But then we have a whole section that shows you maps, and it gives you a comparison of different states and laws. Just because
sorry, this is epic. This has come a really long way since I looked at it.
Oh yeah, if you go to the medical trust tab, so that's for the medical tourism facilities. But there's a at the top, I believe there's a let me see what it is. Protect assets or something. I can't even see it from the. Here we go. Yeah. So this is another map. So it shows us you may live in a state. You may live in New Jersey, or you may live in a state that has bad laws in terms of your ability to protect your own assets. And a lot of people don't think about this. They think that, well, just because I live somewhere, that means I need to use the laws in my state. And you don't. You can form a medical trust in, South Dakota or Alaska or some other state. You can actually form a legal document, legal entity to protect your assets. This is the number one thing people can do to safeguard themselves from basically getting looted by the healthcare system. Because when you have an emergency, when you go to the hospital, they won't even tell you the pricing in advance. 82% of hospitals don't disclose pricing, even though there was a law passed stating that they're required to do so. Hospitals choose to pay I believe it's $300 per day penalty and not disclose their pricing. And this is because people are getting gouged. I mean, people are getting charged like $20 for an alcohol swab that costs 2 cents. And again, you're not able to know in advance. So you show up, you have an emergency, you go to the hospital, you didn't see the prices in advance, and then boom, you get hit with a $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 bill, and then it's over, right? Then you have to file for bankruptcy, you're going to lose your house. So the first thing is you form a medical trust. The second, cancel your insurance, because again, insurance isn't providing you with catastrophic protection, or we wouldn't have this situation where we have all of these bankruptcies. And then the third is to seek alternatives. And so what we've built so far is a list of medical tourism facilities, over 500 that are rated, and we have all kinds of information about the facilities and kind of a little AI chatbot where you can look. But people are not familiar with medical tourism, and over the past, say, 20 years, it's gotten to the point now where the U.S. has degraded so much. We have the most expensive healthcare system by far in the world, but we are ranked 38th in healthcare outcomes. But other countries have stepped up. So there's been this propaganda where we've led to believe, well, it's expensive here because we invent all of the great, devices and all the great medicine and everything else. And it turns out that's actually a lie at this point. So you can get treatment for anything. And this isn't just cosmetic procedures anymore. This is complex bypass surgery. These are cancer treatments you can't get in the United States because it's blocked by the FDA. I mean, it's amazing what is possible. And in general, it's about 70 to 80% less expensive. And by the way, that's including travel. So we even have some information in here that compares procedures. It tells you which country is the best. Like I think Czechoslovakia is the best for IVF. If you want to, heart surgery, there's one specific facility in India that is better, bar none. It's better than the Mayo Clinic, and it's better than the Cleveland Clinic here in the United States. It's like 70%, 80% less expensive, better healthcare outcomes. So all of that information is there. And that's only the beginning, because obviously you want to avoid all of this to begin with. And so, eating different food and actually taking more proactive measures, that's next to what we're going to add into the site. But that is an app that comes with the phone, and it's free. The apps are free. All of the apps that I've created are free.
And that's the way it should be. This is just a service. Yeah, it is so cool to see this. Aaron, I just wanted to ask you, so is the concept of a medical trust and what you would normally pay to insurance, you just put it into the trust, so it just kind of becomes like a little health fund over time?
Well, no, it's putting your assets into a legal structure where if something happens to you and and you can't pay a bill, that those assets are actually shielded from those kinds of proceedings. And so it is a critical step. There are all kinds of other things that people can do, and I'm trying to. I don't want to get into all of the different types of vehicles out there, but this is the big one. They will come for your house. They will come and they do. And we even have on the site we've compiled a whole bunch of actual stories, of horror stories of what's happened to people, where you can see what their bill was, what the consequences were, house foreclosed, the whole 9 yards. And so this is something that a lot of people think only the wealthy can do, is create this kind of trust. And in reality, we also provide links to, you can set this kind of stuff up on like LegalZoom. We even give like a half a dozen different places that you can go to do this, where it's, anywhere from like $50 to $200. Like, this isn't, so, this isn't like you don't have to hire an attorney. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got to hire a lawyer for $500 an hour, I can't afford to do this. No, anybody can. If you have any assets at all, you can almost not afford to do this. It's that critical, and people don't know. And there are different rules in different states, and how long do you have to have the assets put in a trust, before the California tries to claw back these assets. So if you form a trust in California, and I'm going to be wrong about the specifics, but if it was only if it was even a year ago, they'll go after you. They'll claiming, well, you fraudulently, put your assets in this trust, and then you knew you were sick, and so they'll try to steal your assets anyway. This is why you have to actually look at state law. So this is a big hack. This is a big opportunity. And the funny thing is, this came up, and I know we'll talk about this, but I was doing my podcast, and we had a bunch of people come on at the end for this live Q&A, and the guy's like, there was a guy in there who has, I think, 4 kids, and he had just joined the podcast, and he said he just came home from work, where he worked like a 12-hour shift, and he got this notice in the mail that his health insurance premiums had increased $600 per month for his family. And this is a situation where the guy's like, I can't afford this with the inflation and everything else. He's now having to decide whether to pay this insurance or where to eat. So I brought up Mike Adams' Enoch AI, and typed in there, well, what can you tell me? How can we protect assets or whatever? And it kicked back this answer about forming medical trusts. And so that actually inspired me in part to put together this whole site, because he hadn't heard of it, and the other people on there hadn't heard of it. And I'm like, okay, guys, yeah, these are tips and tricks that you can do, and you don't have to be a millionaire, and you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars of legal fees. And so I don't want to get off on too much of a rant. I think it's free. It's key.
That's a perfect segue too. I mean, just being inspired by what Mike is doing, which we're really big fans. We have collaborated with Mike to include his BrightLearn, now named BrightLearn AI, on the phone. So the same questions that Aaron was asking is what you can ask. And if you are not planning to go to conventional medical treatments, then this is perfect. This is a great way to get your preventative medicine. So let me just see here. Let's see. So this basically this is a way to plug into. Oh, there we go. Okay. So basically this is a way to plug into. Oh, you can't see my screen here. Let me bring it up on screen. Here we go. So you can ask this AI on your phone. This is the Daylight Freedom phone that comes out of the box like this. You can launch one of these apps, and you can start talking to Mike Adams' BrightLearn AI right away, and you can start asking it questions about your health. So let's see what a good question is. I'm having knee pain. Is there any supplements I could take or any foods I can eat to help me with it? So not only are you using an offline voice keyboard to ask the question so that no one's spying on you, but you can then talk directly to this AI. And the majority of the Daylight Freedom phones, I think actually all of them, can run this AI. So in a few seconds here, the AI is going to start responding to me and giving me answers right away. So yeah, this is another perfect way to own your body, to truly own your body, to not be dependent on medical infrastructure. And Aaron, I love that you've built this for people, giving them an alternative. Because yeah, I don't think most people realize you can, unless it's like an actual emergency, you don't really need to go to the doctor that often. I haven't been in years. Here we go. So yeah, it's not as fast as the AIs you use online, but hey, in a few minutes it'll be done here. And there we go. It's starting to tell us key supplements for knee health, which is great. Turmeric, a great antioxidant. Yeah, it's going to go on and on like this for a little bit. So now you have an alternative instead of having to go to your doctor and pay ridiculous rates for medical insurance. wow, it's even telling you dosage and all that.
Yeah, and I've had Mike on my podcast several times, and Mike and I talk, a couple times a week, trading back different advice on how to use AI. And so I'm a huge fan of this. And in fact, I think we had him on right when he launched this downloadable version. In fact, I had him on when he launched the non-downloadable version, and then I think had him come back when he had the app. And this is key. This is critical because, a lot of people don't know how to set up, even on their own computer, how to get this set up. And so this is pre-installed on the phone. It's there. And
yeah, I want to say, oh, sorry. I just want to say that, I haven't done anything to this phone in the background. I literally got it from my guys the other day, and they're just like, here you go. And so this is exactly what you get out of the box. Look, it's telling us about collagen and glucosamine and yeah, I mean, Mike is great. I mean, like you said, he's kind of released this for free. It's a massive service to humanity. And I mean, we almost might be able to combine 5 and 6. We not only we can ask questions about our food here too. I mean, it knows so much.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea. Actually, that's a good segue into this because, Mike is the health ranger, and for a couple of decades he's been compiling this information. He's been banned from almost everywhere, but he has pulled together data that he's accumulated himself over 20 years. And he actually has a lab that tests food quality. He is a smart guy that has plugged into a whole bunch of different domains. And on top of that, he's invested, it's a lot more than that now, $2 million going out and scouring the world for information about health, nutrition, alternative. Well, I don't want to call them alternative therapies. I will call them, he's been on a quest to find the truth and things that actually work. That's labeled alternative, but in fact, it's a little bit reversed. But I know I was talking to him one time, and he was just in the process of taking a bunch of ancient texts from China on natural medicine and actually translating them and putting that information into the AI and training the AI on that. And so this is it's a phenomenal model because this is absolutely information that you're not going to get from a big tech AI. One, they're not trained on the data. The data that they're trained on is largely junk and Reddit and a bunch of other things. But on top of that, not only are they not trained on that data, they put guardrails in that would prevent you from getting this information out in the event that it was inadvertently trained on this kind of data. So yeah, that does feed directly into the food component as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Any solution that is alternative or food-based or doesn't enrich big pharma would not show up on your popular AI, but it will on the Daylight phone, which is running this AI out of the box. I just wanted to mention one other thing there. Yeah, on the food note, I think what a lot of people don't realize how important it is to get connected with your local farmers. And this phone comes with a tool right out of the box you can start using to plug in. So this is a map of the United States, but you'll notice that Tennessee is in green. Why on earth is Tennessee in green? It's because we've already downloaded the entire map of Tennessee to our phone. So we zoom in here. You can see I'm going to get all the details of here in Nashville, and I can start to search things in Nashville. To farmers market. Here we go. And we have all of these different farmers markets in Nashville. Now, this one's a little bit out of Nashville, but this is using something called OpenStreetMaps, which is the only mapping alternative to Google Maps and Apple Maps. And there's a lot of data on this map already. There have been people who have been contributing to it. So this is a free, accessible, open for all type of mapping ecosystem. And so that's the beautiful part is you can save, let's say I found some places to forage mushrooms over here. There we go. Gonna add this point and I'm gonna say mushroom foraging. I'm just going to save that. And now that's always going to be available for me on my map. It doesn't matter if I don't have connection. I can always navigate to this point on my map, which is pretty crazy to think about. Same thing goes for the AIs. You don't need to be connected to the internet in order to be able to use this. So if I showed you my personal phone and where I live, you would find the locations of all my nearest farmers, my tradesmen, people in my community. I have all their houses saved directly on my phone. I have all the maps saved locally. The grid could go down right now and I'd be like, doesn't really matter too much because I know where to find my people. And of course I have solar panels. So this is a way for you to own your body and also your food by planning out your local community. I guess that fits in with the kids' future thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the next one, owning your kids' future.
You have anything to share on this? Yeah, I mean, I know you're doing, I mean, all of the apps on the phone would be a way to unschool your kids, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it would be. And in this case, there's these are all things that are being built out. So the one thing that I want to say about these 10 different dimensions of sovereignty. I mean, in some cases, I've built some of the solutions, but that's not going to be the case the overwhelming majority of the time. So we're going to be plugging in other solutions here. And so the Own Nothing tool kind of allows you to do a diagnostic of there are these interesting quizzes in each of these 10 areas that give you kind of an assessment of where you are. And I know I did a podcast, and it's funny. We had a couple guys in on the Q&A, and we were actually testing Mike Adams' book engine. And so somebody actually just brought up the topic. He's like, "Hey, man, did you know how bad the surveillance is in public schools?" And I don't know. My kids aren't in public schools. I don't have the direct experience with what's going on. So we decided to create a book using the Bright U Books platform about it. And then what came back is like, they're absolutely monitoring everything about your kids. I mean, in terms of health records, they're actually tied in with Xbox using, if you're using one of the camera things to try to measure the emotional state of the child. Like, it's incredible. We created a book in real time from the episode about this topic. And so this is one of the pillars. And so there's this diagnostic tool just to wake people up, because people are, I wasn't aware. And I'm guessing Palantir is even involved in some of this now. People have no idea the way in which our children, the data, they're basically being harvested. The data harvesting is immense. And then there are all of these, school counselors, and there's a whole cottage industry of people around it. And so if your kid gets flagged, they can actually detain your kid for a certain period of time. Like, it's insane when you start going down this rabbit hole. So with everything that I'm doing here, there's one part that's identification of the problem. And then, of course, what is the solution? And so this is where we're kind of just building out a database of whatever other people are doing. And that's going to grow organically. And again, part of the show, part of the podcast, part of the apps, part of everything else is to highlight these things. Because I don't know that much. I don't know what all the solutions are either. I know a small fraction of some of these areas. I think I know a lot. I know more than probably most on the currency front, but in these other areas, this is where we're going to be bringing in other resources and other people to share their knowledge and to help people level up in that area.
Yeah, the school stuff is it's unbelievable. And I've done a lot of research on that front as well. And I think this is something that was also brought on by COVID, when we had ESSER distributions, where we gave $180 billion to schools in the United States. And they had to spend it within 5 years. So think about that, $180 billion. They went from not being able to pay teachers to having money they needed to spend right away. Oh, well, looky here. An entire surveillance state got brought up because all of the kids were working remotely, and they were forced to work remotely. So absolutely, when a kid goes to school these days, they are monitored to high heaven. I've talked to kids who have, they're not kids anymore. They're in college now, but really smart, aware kids who were jailbreaking the Chromebooks at their schools to simply escape all of the surveillance, to get back control of their computers. And it's very scary because when kids go to school these days, they're actually being conditioned to live in a world, to live in a classroom where the teacher can see what you're doing at all times. It's very I'm forgetting the name of this tower, but yeah, I mean, essentially, you don't know.
Yeah,
You don't probably
Panopticon.
Panopticon. Thank you.
My wife's favorite word.
Is that because she's always watching you and you don't know?
No, I put it in one of the early AI songs, and so now it's kind of like a running joke. So now I've used the word all over the place. So it's kind of a running joke.
The Panopticon, yeah. It's in a prison. It's in a school. It's in your phone. And so kids are graduating from schools, going into the workforce, thinking, oh, yeah, digital ID. That's another version of what I was taught in schools. Think about that and ask yourself if you want your kids to grow up like that. Absolutely crazy.
Yep. And the next one, we've touched on a lot of these already, but Own What I Bought. And this phone is critical for this. So the Own Nothing site originally started out of an article that I wrote. And the article, it was about, was actually about tokenization and the great taking and a variety of other concepts. But I was doing some research and I found that, and this research was old. This research was like 2004. And even back then, it was something like the average, American signs 100 click wrap agreements every year. So this is like, I mean, if you're using your computer or if you're using your typical phone, every one of those apps that you download has its own terms of service. The most viral tweet that I've ever had, it got like 5 million views or whatever, which is kind of ironic on X, was where I did an analysis of what's in the terms and conditions of the X agreement. So when you're on X, you don't own any of your content at all. They have the right to repurpose that content. They have the right to train their AI on that content. If you are found to be trying to reverse engineer and figure out what censorship they're using, that is that's a breach of the terms of service. If you have a contractual dispute with X, there is only one location in Texas, one particular court area where you can go and lodge your complaint, and the maximum damages that you can receive is $200. And so it's like on and on and on. I listed this. Well, the whole point of Own Nothing originally was this is actually, and people were outraged. This is why it went viral. They're like, well, if these are the new terms of service, in 3 weeks, I'm canceling my account. And then I had to say in the comments, I'm like, look, they actually only changed 2 terms. Everything that you're objecting to was in the previous terms of service, and people just had no idea. And so you go and you look at the Amazon terms of service, and like these documents sometimes are 50, 100, 200 pages long, and you're giving up so much. You're giving up your privacy. You're giving up your right to have a dispute. In some cases, you're giving up your ownership interest in the thing that you think that you're buying. It's through these click wrap agreements. This is how we already own nothing, and yet people aren't aware of it. So this site originally started out as a place where you could go and like put a link to a contract, and then it would spit out a number. It would show you, based on these 5 different points, this is how little, how much you don't own, basically. And then it morphed into this broader thing. But this is critical. You don't own the money in your bank account. If you start running through these things with your bank, your brokerage account, and everything else, people would be horrified. And by the way, if we could just get that message out, because knowing what happened with that X agreement, I'm like, look, try your rental car agreement. Look at your mortgage. I mean, every single aspect of your life. And so it was 100 click wrap agreements in 2004. It's well over 250 now, because each one of these apps is itself a click wrap agreement. And the biggest offenders are big tech. And this is critical. The most obscene thing that I've ever seen is Disney. There was a doctor that died from food poisoning at a restaurant that was on a Disney property. And they actually tried to use in court his Disney online services agreement to get out of the liabilities. So in other words, this doctor bought, Mickey Mouse or whatever through the Disney online agreement. And the agreement was so overarching. Now, they weren't successful in this case because it was whatever.
They tried.
but they tried, and frankly, they win on some of this stuff, and it gets unreported. So in any event, this phone obviously addresses this in many ways.
That's how little they think of us, right? It's like this case is especially, it's hurting my heart because this man, he probably had kids. They like Disney. I mean, he was a lifelong fan, so much that he went to go eat, eat at the theme park. And I mean, this is how they treat you when you're down. This is how they treat you when you get hurt. If you're put at risk, if your data is in risk, if it gets stolen by hackers and gets deleted off your phone, do you think you own it? Do you think they're going to help you get it back? Absolutely not. They do not care one bit. And this is why we have to take the sovereignty into our hands, and that comes to our data. So with the above phone, with the Daylight Freedom phone, everything you do on your phone is actually staying on your phone. It's completely local, right? There's no cloud service backing your photos up. It's all on the phone. Now, with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, you do have to manage the storage on your phone, but don't worry, it's easy. It's very easy. We've taught thousands of people. Anyone from a homeschooler at 15 years old getting his first phone for the very first time to 80-year-old grandmas using private cryptocurrency, we have taught them all. So it is easy. And plus, you can do things like this, where you can go onto YouTube and you can actually just download a video right away. So I'll just pick a download folder here. Let me do this. There we go. Yes, there you go. And now I'm downloading a video directly from YouTube to my phone, so it can't be deleted. I'll always be able to watch it. And I'll give you a hint. You can also do this with music online, right? So really exciting things where you own your data. You can have it all on your device, and you'll always have it. It can't be taken away from you, and you won't be wrapped up into these ridiculous, evil service agreements, which are just used against you.
Yep. And then the last one is own your own word, which is, it's actually directly tied into this. It's just basically you don't have to actually sign these contracts. This is probably the most powerful thing that in your toolkit in terms of improving your sovereignty is realizing you can actually say no. Most people don't even realize they can say no, or that there are alternatives. We've really been conditioned to think that, well, the only choices we have are Apple or Google. Which one are you going to pick? Are you going to pick Coke or Pepsi? Are you going to pick United Healthcare or Cigna? And well, guess what? The answer is I'm going to pick none of the above. And that's what you start to learn, because of actually what's bundled into this phone is a whole new universe of open source free tools that you didn't even know existed, that touch all of these different aspects of your life.
And there's no terms of service at any point in time. You don't have to sign any contracts at any point with the phone. So yes, you can own your word. And with all these things combined, this is great, because I mean, we live in a digital age today. You can ignore that if you want, but I do think it's going to require coordination. It's going to require mass recognition of what you're doing to raise the bar higher wherever you're at. The bar is super low, no matter which industry you look at. So we need people to stand up. We need you to stand up. And that is going to come from the work you do and the work you put out there. So if you're using sovereign tech like the Daylight Freedom phone, you stand strong. You stand in complete control of your data. It can't be taken away from you. And you're actually connected at a person-to-person level without any middlemen. So, yeah, Aaron, thank you so much for having me on to share about this. So how can people get the phone today?
Well, do you want to point them to the page, or do you want me to
There's two places right now. Yes. So I'm going to bring up Aaron's page first. So if you go to daylightfreedom.org/phone. Here we go. Here it is. daylightfreedom.org/phone. Daylight Freedom phone, a phone that does not spy on you. Click on the phones button and you'll see the different options here. You click on one of these, it'll take you to the abovephone.com site. Remember, you have a few options to pick here. So you can add the case and screen protector to the phone. You can see all of the specs here. They're pretty great. You get updates for a very long time. You get a ton of RAM, so you can run any local AI models that you want. It's waterproof, all these things. Then you can also add these things. We talked about owning your data. So you can actually have this storage drive where you can back up your files and you can put them on your computer really easily. You can have a way to plug in headphones. You can even have a way to plug in an Ethernet cable, and then you can use your phone without any wireless radiation. So my house at home, I have it wired up, and because I don't want to be fried by this wireless radiation, so you can do that too. And don't forget to check out Above Suite, which is the email, calendar, VPN, search engine, and many other services. And then you can check out using the Buy Now button. Currently, we are accepting credit card, but if you have any questions, you can always chat with us. If you go to the main site, we accept credit card, crypto, and many other payment methods. So chat with us. There should be a button on the bottom right-hand corner of the page that lets you say hi. We have humans that are ready to answer your questions every business day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And one last thing to mention is that if you're worried about this, if you're worried about switching over to a more private piece of technology, don't worry, because we have the best support in the industry. We have people that will sit on you sit with you on a call. You'll get a free 45-minute call along with any device. So you purchase it, then we'll hop on a video conference just like this. We'll help you move over your old data from your old phone to the new phone and get you sorted. So cool. Yeah, that's everything I've got. Yeah, while I'm on here, I'm just going to say there is a few.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so there's just a few models we have in stock here. And guys, we don't have a lot of these, so just want to make you aware here. Let me bring it back up on screen. The 9 Pro is our nicest phone. The 9 is also a very nice next generation phone. It's just not as big as the XL. The camera is a little worse. The battery is a little smaller. And then we've also got an 8 Pro as a discount model. Still a really excellent phone. And then our budget phone. So you can check out these at abovephone.com. You can also go to abovephone.com/daylight, and you can see the phones there as well. Here you go. Oh, they're great. The page is back now. So yeah, you'll see a few of the features in here, and then you'll see the most up-to-date prices down here as well.
That's great. I mean, I have the Pixel 9 Pro XL with the case and all of the stuff. I absolutely love it. The camera is fantastic. Again, this is a top tier phone. Sometimes, it might make sense here. I know we're running a little bit out of time here, but just to run through some of the, I guess, common questions, because I get asked a lot of questions about this. I mean, some people, when I talk about the phone, they're like, well, is it a flip phone? Is it like literally that there's kind of a, like this is a full smartphone, right? Just to get some of the basics down. But on top of that, what are some of the biggest questions that you get asked so that maybe we can knock those out in advance in the likelihood that people are listening and have those questions?
Yeah, so the first question we get is, can I still keep my number, and can I still use my same cell service, or do I need to get a cell service? So the answer is yes, you can keep your number. And if you want, you can keep your cell service. We can also encourage you to switch your cell service. Some people decide they want a completely different phone number and identity when they start using this phone. So the short answer is you have options. But if you want to keep your same number and service, you can just bring that with the phone. There's nothing extra that you have to pay us. You just pay once for the cost of the phone, and you keep paying your provider that you already had. Other questions might be, hey, am I still going to be able to use the apps I love? And the answer is quite likely. So we do have pretty much every app that you would be able to get on a normal phone, on our phone. You can see we've got things like Spotify, although I don't recommend that, or Snapchat, although I also don't recommend that. But if you needed to use junk food apps like these, you can get them on our phone. And what's best is that you can actually put them in a separate isolated container to make it a little bit more private, to keep those apps from spying on the other apps on your phone. Another common question is, how does this phone actually protect me? Well, like I was saying earlier, is that there's layers of protection all the way from the hardware of the phone, advanced processor features, and things that protect you at the cellular level from cellular attacks, from hands-on attacks. This is literally one of the most secure phones you could buy on Earth right now. Which is crazy that Google and Apple have dropped the ball like this, but hey, here you go. Here's an independent project making a better phone, a more secure and private phone. So we talked about the apps, we talked about cell service. A lot of people ask, hey, well, what am I going to lose? This sounds too good to be true. There has to be something I will lose from using this phone. Well, yes, unfortunately, there is one thing you will lose, and that is the proprietary crap that Google and Apple try to stick on you. So for instance, if you use iMessage or FaceTime, those features on iPhones, those are Apple proprietary features. One, they're actually receiving your phone calls before you receive your phone calls. They're going through Apple servers. They will not work on a Above phone or any other phone. Apple likes to keep a closed down ecosystem. So you won't be able to use those on a Above phone. Also, another thing that people have hard times with is playing 3D games. But hey, if you take any of the principles on the Own Nothing site seriously, then you're probably not sitting around playing 3D games unless it makes you better at some skill. So yeah, those are the things you might lose, and those are some of the most common questions. Again, if you have more questions, go to abovephone.com/daylight and look for the purple chat with us button in the bottom right-hand corner. And yeah, we have people on call during business hours who will sit there and answer your questions. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I got then. Aaron, do you have anything else?
No, I would just say, I mean, all of the, I'm going to pop this on here real quick. All of the apps, all of the Daylight, the whole Daylight ecosystem is going to be on there. So the Aaron Day Show, the Technocracy Atlas with all of the maps of the US and globally that show the growth of technocracy, where you can, get reports, Freedom Forge, OSARA, Own Nothing, Ditch the Dollar, which is the latest edition. Which, I will say briefly, Hakeem actually came out to the Libertarian National Convention where I had a bunch of talks, and we had Enemies of the State event and everything else. And I gave a talk. It was my first talk about Ditch the Dollar, because for a long time, people in libertarian circles have been talking about End the Fed. They've been talking about it since 2008 when Ron Paul wrote the book, and they chant it all the time. Except the only problem is that in 17 years, nothing has happened with respect to actually ending the Fed. No legislation has passed. There's actually no momentum. 2/3 of the dollar of all of the dollars that have ever been printed in the history of the country were printed post the publication of End the Fed. So I'm making a big push for people to ditch the dollar instead of end the Fed. And the difference is, rather than waiting for politicians to do something or the Federal Reserve to do something, which they never will, you can just simply ditch the dollar, and you can do that with this phone. And there are step-by-step instructions. So I would just add that one thing to the end of this. But I'm excited about this. I truly think that, again, I think this phone is the biggest boost that I've seen to your personal sovereignty across these 10 different dimensions. So I'm grateful to Hakeem and Above Phone for partnering on this, because I think this is going to help a lot of people really get ramped up. And it's important based on the rate at which technocracy is accelerating.
Absolutely, brother. Well, we're grateful to you too, and all the important work you do. Honestly, going to Enemies of the State, that event was life-changing, because you truly understand what's at stake. And the last thing I'll say is that this phone, this is just a baby step. This is the first step of many in the future, as we see greater and greater swaths of society pulling away. So you will be a pioneer. You're one of the first people jumping into this. And you know what happens to those who go first? Well, they're usually the most successful and abundant. right? We have to pave the way for all the ones coming behind us who are start to see the ridiculousness of the deal that they've been offered. So be the example in everything you do. And Aaron, thank you for all of these amazing resources you've created. And yeah, I hope this goes far and wide.
Same. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and yeah, let's definitely do this webinar series and continue to educate people. And you know, again, I think this could be one of the biggest vectors out there for fighting technocracy. So thank you for coming on.
Cheers, my friend. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for watching.
All right, and we're back. As I mentioned, that was pre-recorded, so we don't have Hakeem on for the Q&A. But as we discussed, we are going to do more webinars, more instructional videos on how to use the phone and what you can do with the phone, because there really is. I don't think people realize the extent to which there are alternatives out there. And so, you know, in 2020, right after COVID hit, I did a whole series of podcasts until it got shadow banned. Right? I did like 13 or 14 different podcasts, and they were all focused on alternatives to big tech and alternatives to the dollar. I mean, this was at that time. This was, I am 4am. You know, you should hop into the chat. I've only shared the link around to a couple different people, but we should get some folks on here. If you have some time, would love to. It's been a while. Would love to have you on for the have you on for the Q&A. But in any event, in 2020, I put together these things, and I did a whole bunch of research. So, for instance, instead of Zoom, which became incredibly popular. I mean, it was already popular, but I mean, with everybody being forced to work at home, everything became a Zoom meeting. And of course, Zoom is just another big tech, you know, solution where your privacy is completely trampled on. And so I learned about Jitsi, and so I would teach people how to use, you know, here's Jitsi versus Zoom, or here's Odyssey instead of YouTube. And, you know, had alternatives for X, had alternatives for, you know, what you should use Proton Mail, use all of these other solutions. And with this phone, I actually just started out as a customer. I met Hakeem, I think almost 2 years ago now, at a conference. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting idea that he's put together. And so then I started out as a customer. I bought one. I bought a phone for me and for my wife. And I just started using it. And then I was talking to Hakeem and describing some of what the challenges are. Because there's one guy in the comments like, well, I could just buy a Pixel and put graphene on it. I mean, yeah, you could go and buy the phone and install the operating system and install all the apps and get all of it working. What I found is that for most people, the barrier is, well, it's not all people, but for a lot of people, the barrier is about the time and the knowledge versus the incremental cost. I mean, the incremental cost of going and learning about all this stuff, figuring out which apps to download, figuring out how to download the apps, get all of it configured, that takes a lot of time. And, you know, I've done 4-hour workshops where it takes an incredible amount of time just to get somebody set up on one cryptocurrency wallet for one cryptocurrency. Like, I don't think people realize the actual barrier for 99.99% of the planet out there. What I hear, excuse me, the most doing workshops or doing speeches is tell me how to get started. Just tell me what to do. Tell me, you know, what's the first thing that I should do. I mean, people really don't, they're lost. They don't know where to start. And seeing how long it takes just to set up a crypto wallet. And then, and then the next question is, okay, well, how do I buy crypto? And then if you're going through best practices, oh, well, you need to have a VPN, all of this other stuff. And so by the time you go through it, you know, you do a workshop, but then the workshop has led to several other questions, and you've just spent 4 hours on the workshop. And so with the kind of the new launching of Daylight Freedom and all of the entire ecosystem and the focus on action, getting people to actually take action and not voting or whatever, but figuring out how you can improve your sovereignty across 10 different dimensions. The phone is actually it's the highest leverage thing that I've been able to find so far to help people, because you can, in one device, kind of give the finger to, big tech, to Google, to your mobile carrier, and then all of the other apps and other things in there that protect your privacy. And then on top of that, since we've created now, I think 7 or 8 different websites, which are apps that are kind of pre-installed on the phone, and they're not apps in the traditional sense. I mean, they're just essentially icons that you can click on and access the web pages. But I had to go through and actually rework the website to make sure that not only are they mobile responsive, but they have to be the Google phone ready. So some of my earlier websites used Google fonts, and people don't realize all of the different ways big tech is in all aspects of the web and various applications, even though you might not think it. So if you're downloading Google fonts, if you're using Google fonts for your website, Google's getting information about that. They're getting information about what's going on your website. A lot of people use Google Analytics. I do not use Google Analytics on any of our sites, because you don't want all of that information sucked into the big tech thing. And then, Google, they all have relationships with one another, and they've written these click wrap agreements in a way where they can consolidate and share data in a way that's technically de-anonymized, but it's not. At the end of the day, it's very easy to put together a complete picture of a specific individual. It's not even de-anonymized. It's kind of like with Bitcoin. If you can find one transaction, if it's I see what you're saying. If it's one, you can find one Bitcoin transaction. You can find the rest of the transactions. You can find the whole kind of the whole chain. And so that's kind of what it's like being in the big tech ecosystem. All of this stuff is interconnected. So this is why I'm doing it. Is that I actually think when I look at the amount of time and money I've spent trying to onboard people, and I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, a lot of people are like, well, hey, it's growing, more people are using these things, and that's true. But we have to remember how many people are using these parallel systems and these privacy tools relative to the growth of technocracy, because it is a competition. It is a race at this point. And, so it's not enough that we may grow 50% per year. But if they're growing at a faster rate and they have captured almost the entire market share, and then we have Genius and Clarity and everything else, then it's over. So I tried to figure out how to, and I will, as I go through each week and I go through each of the elements of the solution and the different websites, I think I figured out a way to how to articulate the threat of technocracy that is actually personal. Because I think the problem with technocracy is people, it's not only not understanding the concept, but it's okay, well, how does this affect me? Or often we'll be like, oh, well, that's far off in the future. Well, when you look at technocracyatlas.com and you see the animated maps where I've tracked the growth of technocracy by state and by country since 1973, that now you can actually look at it and say, oh, wait a minute, we're over, we're 60% captured already. And this is what's going on in my state. And so, there is a sense of urgency. And I've spent a lot of time, I'm like, all right, do I want to go out and do these workshops again? And I look at it like, man, it's a lot of time. If I'm going somewhere, because I'm going to bring my own equipment, depending upon if it's, east of the Mississippi or whatever, we're driving, and then it's going to be, at least one night in the city, and it's going to be like 2 to 3 days all in. You have travel and all this other stuff, and I can certainly charge for these things. I'm not trying to, maximize. I'm trying to maximize the effect against technocracy. I mean, it's possible to price these things in a way that is affordable and still covers our costs. But at the end of it, it's like, okay, what else? How else could we spend that 3 days? If this is how many people we've onboarded, this is what we're up against. This is why I've launched all of these tools, and most of the tools, well, actually all the tools right now, except for the phone, are free. All of the information is free. Technocracy Atlas and OSR and all these that are, at least the sites that we've launched, are free. You're using them maybe to connect to various services. But we have to really scale up. So I actually saw the phone as a way to accelerate far beyond what's going on with again, even workshops. I am Priam says, data centers, are they for surveillance or AI or both? Will people begin attacking them as they lose their jobs and the economy continues to decline? Well, people are already, I mean, they're not attacking in the kind of blow them up sense, although that might happen. I think it'd be a higher probability that we get a false flag on that, so that there's more legislation that comes in to protect big tech and the companies putting in the data centers. But when you say, are they for surveillance or AI or both? That's kind of the same thing. So what is AI? If you look at the kinds of AI that are being, that these data centers are for, it's not Mike Adams AI. It's big tech AI. It's Grok. It's Anthropic. It's OpenAI. It's Oracle. It's Palantir. So the AI and the surveillance are largely one and the same. Now, listen, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I'm not against data centers as a concept, but when you look at the data centers, and I'm going to be putting out a report to go along with the Technocracy Atlas that will allow you to see by state what the data centers are, the ones that already exist and what are proposed, so that you can differentiate amongst them. I mean, certainly there are some data centers out there that aren't used for these malicious purposes, but the ones that are being built at scale are. And in fact, when we did the episode on Ohio, and you look at what's going on there, in fact, that's one of my favorite episodes that I've done, which with Craig Winkowitz, where we walked through technocracy in Ohio. That's actually what kind of inspired me to do the new Technocracy Atlas and really compile all of this information by state and country, because I had no idea. Ohio has all of these data centers. I think they're the third worst state in the country, but they have this data center area that is in a corporate town that was funded by Les Wexner, that Jeffrey Epstein was the president of. This town of New Albany in Ohio is one of the main corridors for these AI data centers. We just learned this week. I actually talked to Craig a few days ago, and he said, looks like John Kasich, when he was governor, put in some tax incentive structure for data centers that gives them, basically, I don't remember the specifics. I think it removes sales tax on the purchase of hardware or whatever, going out to like 2065 or something like that. And people didn't even know about it. Like, somehow this massive thing got buried. And only now people are, because Kasich hasn't been governor for a long time, only now are people realizing the impact and the size of these deals. And so it's cronyism. And the cronyism is going to Amazon, it's going to Google, it's going to Oracle. And it doesn't create any jobs, but on top of that, the taxpayers are subsidizing it, usually at the state level. So when you look at, and I have to bring this up because we're talking about data centers, this Claude Fable model was released last week. And I will tell you, I used it, and it blows away absolutely everything. I got so much done I'm actually waiting for it to come back. There's certain projects I'm not even going to try to do, just because the model is that much better. It was incredible. And at some point you'll be able to see the fruits of it. I can't talk about one of the projects now, but when you'll be blown away when you see it. And in fact, it was done using Fable, but really with just a couple of prompts. Now, I had the data already set up. I had my infrastructure set up and everything else, but a couple of prompts, and you'll see the project. And I was just stunned. Well, we can't get access to that model anymore. And the reason is Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is the one that wrote the memo or whatever to Anthropic saying, well, hey, we have to worry about export controls. We have to make sure that no non-US citizen has access to this technology, including employees of Anthropic. So Anthropic's response was, well, we don't know how to differentiate necessarily. Like, how are you going to, and by the way, I'll tell you how they're going to do that. They're going to, this is going to be another call for digital ID. If you want to use the latest Anthropic model, you're going to have to provide some kind of biometric information. And at some point in the future, this is going to be another pretext for accelerating real ID, which is a digital ID. So, so again, like I'm all for Mike Adams doing, data centers, and potentially I could do it. I've got a little mini data center myself, but it's just where I live. It's not kind of like a full-fledged thing, but that is not what everybody's talking about. That's not what's being built. That's not what's being crammed down people's necks. And, eminent domain being used. I talked to a woman at the Libertarian Conference who said in Atlanta, they were literally coming in and, basically taking people's homes in this poor section of Atlanta, and then doing all kinds of like legal paperwork and everything back and forth, all for data centers. So so the overwhelming majority of data centers that are being built right now are malicious. So Faith asks, did you ever record your workshops? I did. I recorded a couple of the early ones, and here's the thing: they're useless. And this is part of the problem with this. If I go back like 2 years when I started really doing these workshops, it's a completely different set of tools and technologies that I'm promoting now. It's not completely different. I mean, in the sense that it's still, privacy and with Zano focus, but at the time, the Zano wallet, if you were to look at the workshop that we did a couple of years ago, or even 18 months ago, what I found is that for newbies that are actually just learning this for the first time, it needs to be very explicit. They want to see exactly what's going to be on the screen. And if somebody does a design changes the UI or whatever, and you're showing them a video and the UI looks different, then they think something's wrong. This is truly something that I've learned in doing this. And so the solutions that I would be showing. So what I did instead was, and I'm updating this all the time, but you can go to freedomforge.io, and rather than having videos, and this is something else that I learned. People would rather have written instructions where you can go through and see the screenshots, but then actually read the text describing the screenshots, because it's actually, to be honest, cumbersome to sit there on a phone or on a tablet or whatever it is, and you're pausing the video and you've got to go back and forth, and now you're trying to install the thing. That actually is a pretty big encumbrance. So I put together these tutorials, and they're all free. One thing I want to add that isn't there, you could print the web pages directly, but I'm going to make a PDF download of these tutorials as well, because a lot of people want to print this stuff out and go through the installation process, while reading something on the printed page. This is what I've learned through experience doing this. So freedomforge.io is always going to be a source for free tutorials. My goal, what is driving me to do all of this is that I truly believe not only is technocracy a threat, but the way out of it is not going to be voting. It has to be parallel systems. So now what I realized is, in light of how aggressively technocracy is moving, it's now all about time and impact, and what will bring the biggest impact, not what will generate the most money. I want to make sure that it's sustainable, but it's actually more about the outcome. So my goal is to give away all of the information for free and try to put it in formats that's easy for people to use. The phone is a prepackaged, again, the gist of it is I use it. Like the other thing is I'm not going to have any sponsors on this show, on this show that aren't either something that I'm using, or as it stands right now, it's going to be my own sites, which are free. I'm not going to take paid sponsorship from people that just want to sell whatever it is. And so if there's a solution on here that I'm talking about it because I'm using it. But then the challenge even with that is, because I even put together some groups, like Telegram groups or whatever, for the people that attended some of the early workshops. And it's, and so if you had listened to me 3 years ago, this was before I was fully into privacy coins. This is why I recommend that people, stay on top of this podcast and stay on top of the websites that I put together, because what I use changes by nature. There isn't going to be a single solution to any of this, by the way. The only people that believe in kind of single monolithic solutions are the technocrats. And so these markets are there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think part of the value that I bring to the show and to the ecosystem we're building is that is what I do all of the time by necessity, because I stopped using a personal bank account in 2019. So I actually have to figure this out. So if something happens, it's not like I'm not like toying around with this. If all of a sudden, this wallet doesn't work, or this cryptocurrency doesn't work, or this debit card doesn't work, or whatever, I have to find another solution because this is what I use. This is the currency that I use. I have truly ditched the dollar. And so, so it does change from time to time, but it's been pretty stable for a while. And so I'm pretty happy about that. So this is why I like, the ZBEC debit card and the Zano wallet. I've actually recently learned, as I was putting together the tutorials for the Ditch the Dollar launch, that the easiest solution right now is the Bitcoin.com wallet, which is funny because I spend so much time talking about Bitcoin being hijacked and everything else, and then the wallet that is the easiest to onboard people to Zano and Freedom Dollar is actually called Bitcoin.com. But it is from my I don't know if you want to call it focus groups, but testing with different people and different audiences, the various wallets out there. For somebody new to this, the Bitcoin.com wallet is the easiest to get set up. It's the easiest to use. You can buy crypto directly in the wallet. There's KYC. Yeah, that's the nature of buying directly as you're getting started, unless you're earning it directly. But it's lighter KYC than most. It's something you can actually get done in like 15 minutes, as opposed to, you try to set up an account on an exchange or even some of the other crypto wallets. It's like it takes a while actually to get approval, and you might not even get approved. In fact, I'm not, as I think about it, I don't even know if I've ever successfully bought crypto with a debit card. When I'm talking about going like back in the day, all I remember is not being able to buy for whatever reason, and then just kind of giving up on that path. So anyway, as I said, each podcast now moving forward, there's going to be at least a segment. It's not that I'm not going to talk about the other stuff, but I want to make sure every episode has some actionable thing that people can do after watching the episode to improve their personal sovereignty. So, Faith says, do you want to hear my music? Sure. I'd love to hear your music. Send it to me. You can send it to me on X and at Aaron R. Day, and I'll be happy to listen to it. But so in any event, so I think that and it's now moving away from, I'm moving more into a marketing phase as well, where it's important to get this information out. I've built a lot of content, a lot of different websites. Now we have the phone and everything. But now it's time, man, I'm going to be using AI for a lot of this as well to try to figure out how to reach new people, because I will tell you, I think a lot of the Liberty community is one, it's not that big, and two, I think it's about as saturated as it can be, at least for now. I think, I don't think I've even talked about this since I've been back. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But Libertarian Convention was, we were expecting 1,000 people. There were 600. It was an absolute circus. As I discussed with Hakeem, people are still sitting there chanting "End the Fed," which hasn't worked. And so there are I think we've met great people there. And thank you, I am for I am. Yeah, hopefully we can have you on again, maybe next week. If you have chance, it's always great to have you on for these Q&As. Always interesting topics. So in any event, I've been doing a lot of the same conferences for the last 3 years. And it gets to the point where it's like, I'm going to start probably skipping a year for each of these things, because, I found myself in a position where I'm like traveling all over the world, meeting actually in many cases people that live near me in New Hampshire, which is always a funny thing. It's like, all right, I'm going to Acapulco and I'm going to hang out with people that I hang out with in New Hampshire. So I'm going to be more strategic about that, but we've got to branch out, because I don't think that what we're talking about here, and a lot of people, look, I'm glad I am brought up the data center topic, because I think this is a gateway to getting people to understand technocracy. And the people that I see showing up to demonstrate at these data center town council meetings or whatever it happens to be, these are not people that I would normally see at a Liberty event. It's kind of like COVID woke up a lot of people. Not enough, unfortunately. But that brought a whole new group of people that are like, hey, wait a minute. If public health is doing this, how does our money work, right? I think people were so shocked to learn how public health actually works. Not, by the way, that COVID was even a deviation. COVID is just, people are finally figuring out what's going on. But then people started questioning money. So I'm going to, and it doesn't even need to all be about events either. Some of it's going to be online marketing, just figuring out different ways to hit and find different groups of people, because there are people that are waking up now. And frankly, some of these Liberty events are a great way to turn people off to Liberty. I love some of the events, but some of them, man, I got to tell you, if I know some people that came in from out of the country to go to this Libertarian Party National Convention, and frankly, they were shaking their heads. It is not what they expected. And by the way, it wasn't what I expected either. I actually, in 2024, the Libertarian Convention was much, much different. This was I don't even know how to describe the composition of the folks there, but it's not, it's the one thing that really struck me is they had 600 people there. And then, as these events go, for an organization that's been around for a long time, they'll have this in memoriam section where they, show pictures of the people in the movement that have died in the past year. And I don't know how many people there were that they went through, but I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, it went on and on and on. I honestly think there were probably 60 people on that list. So if you're in a movement, like look at it like this, if your last conference had 1,000 people and this one had 600 people, and 60 people you showed died in your movement in the last 12 months, like that is decaying. That is not a growth thing. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this, where, by the way, this applies to all of the different groups that I've been going to. It doesn't matter if it's the Brownstone Institute, if they're crypto events, if they're Liberty events. And I would love if anybody listening to this has any ideas. Where are young people? I mean, when I got involved with this stuff, when I got involved with Liberty organizations and crypto, I mean, I was somewhat young. I mean, I'm not now. I mean, I'm 50 now, but I mean, at the time when I got involved with a lot of this stuff, I was young, and the average age of people involved was much younger. And now I'm going to these things, and it's like I'm still relatively young, and that's an eerie thing, because it's going to be really difficult to have movement be successful if you're trying to mount I even want to call it an attack, mount an exit, I would say, from technocracy. You can't do that without young people. And I don't know where they are. I don't know what other events. I'm not hearing that there are other events either. But I think that there's an issue with this. So I'm spending a lot of time researching, trying to figure out how to get this information in front of young people and people that are just kind of newly waking up to these ideas, because I think there might even be more energy there. I think there's a sense of I wouldn't call it complacency. It's not complacency, but it's almost like, it's demoralization. I guess when you've been kicked so many times, it's hard to find in some of these movements the fire to do what is necessary to tackle this threat. And then a lot of people because they've been kicked so many times, then their standards for success get lower and lower and lower. And then they start selling out to the point where they're not even aiming high. They're aiming to fail slowly, fail more slowly than the other guy. And that becomes the aspiration. I think that's a lot of the political aspect of this. Can the telecom simply deny network access to your phones? Yeah, I mean, Don, look, again, every time you come on here, it's the same thing. I have to stress this. People have to start using these things and get other people as quickly as possible. The default, if we don't do that, is we're in a digital prison, period. There are risks in a whole bunch of different areas. Hakeem didn't mention it, I don't think, in the podcast, but he's working on a mesh network idea that he wants to start piloting, but he wanted to start with the phone first. And there are some other people that I know that are using mesh networks, like Ernie Hancock and others. So this is a race. So this is why I also stress the fact that I'm moving more into marketing mode and getting people ramped up, because if people don't start building parallel systems because their attitude is, well, they could shut this off, understand that the plan is for them. They're already shutting it off. They are already, as we discussed in the thing, if you buy an above phone, you must still rely on a traditional service provider. I mean, you could use it internet only. You could use it with mesh networks. You can use something like Silent Link, which, by the way, is what I use for my service. So for right now, there are multiple different options. I mean, I'm moving away from. I haven't decided yet, but moving away from having a phone number altogether. When I use Signal, I don't even give people a phone number anymore. I give them my Signal ID instead of my phone number. And but this is as to, can traditional service providers block your network access? I mean, they are certainly moving in that direction. And I believe Thailand, either they've done it or they've announced that they're going to do it. You can't get a bank account in Thailand unless you have a cell phone, but the cell phones that you have to be registered. So you can't use burner phones now in Thailand. So the writing, that is where everything is going. That is, if you look at you have to show an ID and prove that you're 16 years or older to use the internet. And this kind of idea is proliferating all around the world. That is the direction. The direction is digital IDs, digital currencies, and AI surveillance. And in fact, which is why I put together what's on technocracyatlas.com. It's already here in most places. In fact, I have to say, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody who said, back when the UK was accelerating their digital ID concept, who's sitting there laughing at the UK, and then I find out they have a real ID and they didn't even realize what their real ID is. This is the gap that we have in knowledge. So this is it's kind of like with privacy coins, right? It's like, well, somebody's like, well, is this 100% foolproof? It's like, well, no, it's a race. Monero is upgrading their model to make the transactions more difficult to find. Zano is updating their model as well, and then changing the consensus mechanism and moving to proof of stake. And it is a race. It is a race. It is a competition, and we need more people building more of these tools. The phone is the reason I like the phone is it's the fastest way to get new people onboarded to parallel systems. But we're still going to need mesh networks next, right? It's not like the phone isn't going to save the world. The phone is going to bridge people to parallel systems. But what we really need with these parallel systems are other people building these parallel systems. I mean, we built OSARA as a medical tourism marketplace. Really, I built that as a kind of a prototype to show people a kind of thing that you can do. Somebody else could create a food marketplace. And by the way, now with AI, it's like, whether it doesn't even have to be Fable, there's a new open source Chinese model, GLM 5.2, which I haven't tried yet, but I think it just came out yesterday. And what I've seen is that in some areas, it even beats the new Claude model. And so my point with this is, people can now build these things without having to have a lot of technical expertise. So if you've got passionate about something, you're willing to kind of play around and learn how to use AI, Zano makes it easy for you to connect with them using some MCP tools and so forth, where you can make it where it's easy to kind of now build and develop on Zano. So what I've been trying to do is show people what can be done, and at the same time build some tools that are actually useful themselves. But Freedom Forge is not only about tutorials, but it's what I'm hoping happens as we move forward is entrepreneurs start to look at, here are some other things that need to be built, and maybe I can build those things now. I can use AI, and I can connect with some of these other things, and I can connect with some other people that are interested in these projects. And now it doesn't cost a lot of money. It does not cost millions of dollars to build these projects. I have bootstrapped the Daylight Freedom Foundation is a nonprofit that my wife and I started, and I've completely funded it myself. I've bootstrapped it. I've taken all money that I make from all sources and bootstrapped it into building Daylight Freedom. And now we actually have a pretty big infrastructure. And if you look at the amount of stuff that we built over the last couple of years relative to the amount of money that has been put in it, it's incredible what you can do. And it's only going to get cheaper to build things. And so I'm going to try to figure out how to, in making AI the 10th domain of sovereignty, I think I'm going to try to do more. I don't know how to do it yet. I mean, I've had Mike Adams on a couple times. I've been on his thing, and I know he and I end up kind of dorking out. My wife kind of tells me it's like people, probably have no idea what they're talking about. But I do want to try to figure out how to. I mean, it moves so rapidly. This is actually what I say to her. It's like if I put together, it's kind of like the person who asked, well, do I have my workshops on video? I don't. I wouldn't put them out. I have a couple of them, and they're already out of date. And so the same thing is true with AI. But I would like to figure out how to start onboarding people and showing people how you can get started and just keep at it. And you'd be amazed at how, and the tools are becoming so much easier to use. I heard somebody the other day say that the newest, hottest programming language is English, because that is actually the case, because you're no longer, when I'm interfacing with AI, I mean, the way I prompt them at this point, I actually yell at the thing a lot of the times because I've got the environment set up or whatever, but I'm not like sitting here writing lines of code. I'm just directing it to basically utilize the system and the parameters that I've set up for all of the projects, all of the kind of the strategy. To me, it's more strategy documents and process and everything else, and directing it to quickly cobble those things together. And it's using English, not using code. And so I want to figure out a way to, I don't know, maybe we can do vibe coding hackathons or whatever, or vibe coding workshops. But I think anybody can do it, and you just have to start. And the sooner you start, the better. I think it's the guy that started Google's AI. What is the name of the company that did the AlphaGo? Google Mind. I mean, but whatever, the guy that created that, he was just saw a clip from him at a talk where he said, the people, there are going to be single people that are, building the equivalent of a 1,000-person company using AI. And in fact, I can see that that's the case. But the thing that he said about it is it's not about how much programming talent you have. It's how soon you start, because it's all cumulative. Everything that I do, everything that I've worked on so many different projects that I got stuck here. I abandoned it for a short period of time, but I kept the work or whatever. And then at some other point, like it just, the way that the development works is I think I have something like 22 different projects going on. I mean, I have the 8 external facing projects, but I have stuff that I'm using personally that it's not a product. I don't know if I'll make it available to other people. But one thing that I've done is I've taken my genome, my entire genome, and I've used it to create a tracking tool. And where I just access it through Telegram, but using this tool, I was able to find out some things that, and I'll share even what I learned. Just again, using AI and putting together this tool, I learned that the biggest kind of, I wouldn't call it a health risk or whatever that I have is actually caffeine. Caffeine is bad for me. Well, I'm somebody that used to drink, 2 quadruple espressos a day. I'm somebody that drinks, caffeine, or did drink caffeine constantly. I've actually, as of like last week, I've completely cut out caffeine because my body doesn't clear it quickly, and it causes increased anxiety. So that one thing, you cut out that one thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, my heart rate variability skyrockets, my REM sleep skyrockets. And I'm not talking about even like, well, yes, if you're drinking caffeine late at night, that makes sense. But I mean, for me, if I were to have caffeine at all, I would need to stop by 9 a.m. That's kind of what I'm dealing with here. Or I learned that I need a certain kind of methylated B vitamins, which are really critical to helping with some other aspects of these things. And so, but again, I was able to take my genetic information and I put it together in a way where I'm like, okay, what are my key levers? Like, I don't want to do what Brian Johnson does, which is where you're spending your entire life extending your life, but for what purpose, right? It's, at some point I want to optimize what I'm doing just so that I can be effective at what it is that I want to be doing, or what I am doing, my work. I want to be able to have optimal brain function. I want to be able to have optimal energy, but I'm not going to spend 8 hours a day doing it. I'm kind of like, okay, what are my key drivers based on my genome? And what are the things that I can do where if I'm going to spend an hour a day or less, how do I get the biggest value for my buck? So now I have a whole tool, a whole visual dashboard that I can see, and I get Telegram messages every day where, I can just, I've got it connected to, my bed. It's connected to my, some of my sleep information. I don't do a lot of biometrics. I actually stopped wearing a watch, but I do have a bed that has some information. So I'm not having to enter a lot of information, but then I have an agent that I've developed that goes out and searches PubMed, searches all of the research reports, a whole series of podcasts and everything that's going on every day, and reporting back based on my genetics. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want, right? You don't really care about, you can watch all of these health podcasts all you want, but chances are you actually really are interested in watching it because you want to know how it's going to improve you, or how it's going to improve a loved one or a family member. And so now that's it. So I set the thing up, and now that's it. Every week I get a Telegram report. Here are the big things here. Now I know, things around supplements and sleep, I shouldn't do caffeine. I should, take a cold shower every day. And that will help with my dopamine. And, it's like all of a sudden I get 5 pieces of information that are really actionable that happen to go against everything that I've done my entire life. And then, I'm moving on. So I'm saying this is one of the tools that I've created just for myself. And there's a lot of that going on there where, so once you know how to use AI and once you structure your environment, and by the way, all the stuff that I'm talking about with this health information, I'm using my own computer for that. So these agents that are running these systems, they're doing things based on my genetic information. I'm not using Claude for that. I'm using AI models that are literally hosted on my machine, and the information is encrypted. So I don't know. I got launched off on that because certainly, again, these are all going to be topics that I'll go into greater detail as we do more and more of these podcasts. But we now have 10 different areas of improving sovereignty, and I'm going to keep talking about the phone. I'm going to keep promoting the phone heavily because everything that I do, well, not everything, but maybe there's some things that don't make sense for the phone. But as it stands right now, everything that I'm developing and all of the tools and everything that Mike Adams AI is on this phone. And I think about how interesting that is. I remember I had Mike on before he'd even developed the version of his AI that you can download to your local computer. And then we went from that. And I think, my podcast was probably one of the first that he came on after he made that model available. And now here we are, maybe a year later. Time is flying here, but now his phone, his AI model is built into the phone. So you can go back to some of the previous episodes that I did. I remember we do one of these Q&As and people would come on here and again, by the way, this Q&A part of this podcast, this is where I get inspiration and a lot of the ideas for the stuff that I built. So on the podcast where I was showing people Mike Adams' new AI, we had a couple of guys come on, and one of the guys was talking about, he's worried about his healthcare costs because he had just gotten hit with a premium increase of $600 a month. And this was when the whole shutdown was going on and everything else. And so I introduced him to the idea of a medical trust. And the fact that, and I didn't even know all of the details of this information at the time, but that, maybe you should consider canceling your insurance and forming a medical trust because the position this guy was in isn't any different than most people, which is that most people are now having to make decisions, or a lot of people are having to make decisions about paying these increased premiums or paying their mortgage or how much food they can buy for their family. And so as a result of that, I used Mike Adams' AI, and I said, well, how do you create a medical trust? And we actually popped it up on the screen. And then based on that, this was part of what prompted me to create OSARA. Because if you go to OSARA, yes, it's a medical tourism site, but the first 2 things that you should do before you can get into medical tourism is form a medical trust to protect your assets. Because every minute in America, someone files for medical bankruptcy, and most of those, 3/4, are insured. Insurance doesn't protect you. The system is a scam. And OSR now has started out as an information source with all of the information about that topic, about the rate of medical bankruptcy, how much hospitals charge. I even put together a map so 82% of hospitals don't even share pricing information, even though they're legally required to do so. They would rather pay a $300 a day fine than show their pricing. Why? Because they're charging, $27 for an alcohol swab that costs 2 cents. And they charge different people different things, and they don't show you the pricing in advance. So when you go to a hospital for what you think is a routine thing, you get hit with a $40,000 bill. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're obligated to pay it. This is why people are filing for bankruptcy. So based on the Q&A from this show, really OSR launched, but then OSR launched with the first focus being, and I'll do a whole segment on this at some point. that people need to get a medical trust, and you can get a medical trust. So we put together a map of, because people don't know about this stuff. They don't know about, they think that, well, if I'm in this state and the state has bad laws, I guess I'm just kind of stuck. No, you can create a trust in a different jurisdiction. You are not, you can form legal arrangements and trusts and other, this is why corporations are formed in Delaware. They're formed there because Delaware has better laws. Well, it turns out, and this is actually a game changer for a lot of people, you are not beholden to where you live. You can shop anything. Like, I live in New Hampshire, and everybody talks about New Hampshire is the freest state, so on and so forth. But the funny thing is, I wouldn't incorporate anything here. I don't have businesses here. I wouldn't form a nonprofit here because the laws on that stuff, they're not the worst in the country, but they're not the best. And so why would I take an inferior option if I can incorporate in Nevada or Wyoming or somewhere else, or get a medical trust in South Dakota? And the thing is, this stuff isn't just for wealthy people either. This is part of the great, this is where we have to start using AI differently to fight back. AI and other tools. You can use online services, and I have a list to maybe a half a dozen or so. You can form a medical trust for like $50 to $250. It's not, I mean, you might hear, a trust, because you hear about, somebody's a trust fund baby or whatever. You assume automatically, this only applies to millions. No, it's $50 to $250. Is it worth it to pay $50 to $250 to not have the healthcare industry foreclose on your home if you have a slight medical emergency that you end up getting billed $100,000 for? It's critical. So in any event, I don't want to get too far off track, but I do want to say, like, there's a lot of there are high leverage things that we can do, and I'm spending most of this summer figuring out what are the highest leverage things we can do to stop technocracy. And probably next week, some other things might come up between now and then. So I never like to forecast the topic too far in advance because there's a lot going on and I might pivot. But I think I'm going to make a big part of next week going fully through ditchthedollar.com. The argument, how to do it, show everybody all the resources, because in my opinion, it is the single highest leverage thing that we can do to stop the technocrats, because the basis of their control system is around the control of money. And as money becomes more programmable and as assets become more programmable, which is what they're going to do with the Clarity Act, that makes it very hard for us to break out and build parallel systems. That is to quote what Mark Edge said at the Enemies of the State, that's how they get us by the short and curlies, is through more and more programmable digital money. And we're like late in that stage. So all the people that have been shouting, and the Fed, they're right? By the way, the Brownstone Institute put out an article, which I'll remember to go through that too. A lot of people have been talking about, in fact, the official government statistics are that the US dollar has lost 26% of its purchasing power just since 2020. Do you think about that? That is just massive. I mean, overall, since 1913, the dollar's lost 97, 98% of its purchasing power, but it's lost, 26% according to the government since 2020. Well, it turns out when you actually analyze the number, the dollar's lost 50% of its purchasing power since 2020. I mean, we're talking about just massive. I don't know if we've seen anything quite like that. Certainly haven't seen anything like that in our lifetimes. So people are feeling this, right? Inflation is much worse than it's being reported. I actually don't need to tell any of you this because we all live it every day. I can't, I paid $3 to put air in my tire. And then this is in New Hampshire. I wasn't at I wasn't going to a high-end anything. I was going to a gas station, local gas station right down the street, $3 to put in gas. Air. $3 to put air into tires. And so everything is just out of control. But then, so we all know that part of it, At least a lot of us know that part of it. But then the programmability aspect of it is the other part. So the way to stop them is to get more people to not use their system. So not only are you building a parallel system, but you're depriving them of their control system. So if you want to end the Fed, literally, if we reached out to 3 people, and then those 3 people reached out to 3 other people, and then those people reached out to 3 other people, you do that 15 iterations of doing that, and you've ended the Fed. And I laid that out, and I'll lay that out next week. All the details of it. That's literally all it takes. This isn't even that hard. And so I'm looking for projects like that we can do that simultaneously deprive them of oxygen while allowing us to build something better. So it's not necessarily a fight. It is exit and build, but it's exiting strategically in a timely manner in a way that actually slows them down. Because we have to slow them down. Right now, they have zero friction. There is no political friction for the surveillance state right now. Nowhere. People who are supposedly libertarians supporting Palantir, right? There's nothing. The other thing that we can do, and I guess I started talking about using AI for trusts. I'll be announcing some projects that I'm working on using AI on the legal front. I think if we can put together some tools and show people how to use AI, we could get people all over the country filing lawsuits to stop data centers and stop all of these other things using AI. The biggest reason that, for instance, cell towers were able to proliferate, despite a lot of legitimate opposition to it, I've not really seen anyone slow down cell phone towers like 5G and so forth. I mean, except for, interestingly, Stamford, Connecticut. So all the wealthy people from Wall Street, as they go to New York on the train and they go home to Greenwich. I think it's Greenwich, actually, not Stamford. Because I've been there. I spent some time there. You can't talk on the train. It's this, everybody has to have decorum. Everybody's well dressed, but you can't speak. But part of the quietness is because they don't have cell towers. So that's, it's actually kind of like, it actually has some Stepford vibes to it. But beyond that, and these are the guys that are probably the lawyers and the bankers for all of the telecom companies that are putting up the cell towers everywhere else, by the way. But imagine, but I've seen this happen at a local level where local activists gets together, they want to fight Verizon, and then Verizon comes in and they bring a whole bunch of lawyers, and then they bring a whole bunch of scientists to come in with a bunch of reports, and then they bribe the town council, and then the cell tower goes up. Because or they'll file lawsuits, and then there's no way to counter that. Well, if you empower people to use AI to be able to file some of these cases pro se, then the only cost that you actually have are the cost of using the AI and the filing fees. So this is kind of like the idea of using a third-party political race to obstruct the two parties to move them the way that you want. You don't have to have billions of dollars. You don't have to spend, tens of millions of dollars on your own campaign to be able to be the wedge in the middle. Well, this is an opportunity and a way to use AI. I'm going to explore that. Maybe I'll have Craig come on, because he and I had an interesting conversation about that the other day. I'd like to walk through what that might look like. But we do have to be a little, we need to exit and build, but we do have to slow them down, because the rate at which they are proceeding is significantly faster than we're proceeding. We've got a lot of people like, well, I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure I want to try that. There's a big shift that has to happen, which is you have to realize that the default is digital prison. Once you get there, then you won't be afraid anymore. You'll realize that the thing that you'll be afraid of is inaction, as opposed to action. That's what people are afraid. People are afraid to take action right now, because they don't realize that if they don't take action, they're going to have a guaranteed bad outcome. And so I think there's a way to start describing these things and some tools, because then once you do get it, once you see it, then there's no fear. People ask me all the time, aren't you afraid you're doing this and you're talking about all these people with the prisoners? It doesn't matter. If we're not successful at figuring out a way to break through this, then we're all in prison. So once you know that, you know, I mean, what's the risk? I might be in prison slightly, you know, before other people. I mean, like very slightly at this point, because at the rate, like this is before 2030, right? So there isn't any risk. The risk is in inaction. So with that said, thank you for joining tonight, and hopefully next week I'll have a chance to get some more invitations out, or get some invitations out in advance, so that we can have more lively Q&A. And I know people don't have a lot of time. These podcasts go late, and I know. And by the way, I even view this as most of the content that goes viral is going to be a clip from this, or maybe even a post that's not even the podcast itself. Like, you know, I'll have some clips that'll get a couple 100,000 views, or, you know, long form posts, but that come out of the preparation for or the discussions on this podcast. So I know most people don't listen to the whole thing, or maybe they'll power through it at 2 to 3x or whatever. But I do want to try to get some of the live Q&A going again, and maybe I'll structure it a little bit better, because a lot of good ideas have come from the Q&A. In fact, the web, as I said, the latest Technocracy Atlas, OSR.com, has come from that, and a lot of the tools that are on the above phone, the Daylight above phone, which is daylightfreedom.org/phone. A lot of the things that we've integrated there, from VP.net to Mike Adams AI, to, you know, Zano, to the Bitcoin.com wallet, all of those other things. These are just kind of a continuation of things that have come about on this podcast. I had Matt Kim, who's the CEO of VP.net, on this podcast, and many others. And so this is it's a great forum. And a lot of, if you've listened to the Q&A in the past, people come on with some weird, topics that are out there, and some of those are the best conversations. Or I remember when we were doing testing out Mike Adams' book engine, and this is where we learned about how bad the surveillance state has really taken a stranglehold over public schools, which I wasn't even aware of the detail. We wrote a book about it. One of the folks that came on for the Q&A and I co-authored a book on the surveillance state in schools, and so in writing and then reading our own book, learned a bunch about it, and then that actually became one of the 10 domains of sovereignty. So with that said, I'm going to end it a little early tonight, but we'll be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. And tentatively, the topic will be ditchthedollar.com, but I reserve the right to change it because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and might have to make a pivot at the last minute. So with that said, I'm going to, let's see what song. I might upload a new music video. Let me do that. See if we can actually get the audio to work too. I don't know why the intro audio, I guess, was a little bit weak, or had some sound issues, which I'm not entirely sure why. So hopefully I'll get that worked out next week. But there was a new music video that I played at the beginning, and I want to play it. It's called When the Camera's Left. It's part of a whole series. I have 7 or 8 actual songs that I made about the crypto prisoners of war. And the 7, there are more, but I've been predominantly covering 7 people. Ian, historically, Roger Veer, Roman Storm, Roman Sterlingoff, Keone Rodriguez, William Hill, and Ray Youssef. So those are the main ones I've covered. And there are others, but I did a whole bunch of songs in different styles. and it was when I was at the Bitcoin conference actually. And I actually like a bunch of them. Like I can't, I play the one that's tentatively called Enemies of the State. And that's kind of the Les Mis style song, which is definitely over the top. But I have like a whole bunch of different genres, and I like them all. I'm trying to see though. I don't know. Is file too big? I don't know. Bear with me here. I've actually one of the things that I've worked on is I've completely redone the music video system and also song generation system. So I've overhauled that, and it's every time you go through and do a big overhaul, there's actually been a little bit of a delay to work out the kinks of the system, but the new system is much better. So once it's done, I'm going to be able to crank out even better songs and better videos, but I'm in kind of a development phase. So this is the first video created using the version 3 of my music video generation tool. So it's loading right now, and as soon as that loads, I'll play that as the outro music. But again, this one is called When the Camera's Left. And I'm going to try to, I'll tell you, hopefully we have some good news. Trump has said that he's going to pardon, or may pardon 250 people corresponding with the 250th celebration. And, I think there's a pretty good chance that our guys might be on that list, and that the Senate race and everything played, at least a small part in that. But we have now, between now and July the 4th is really critical. So I'm going to be putting out a lot of content from the Enemies of the State event and some of these music videos as well. And if you could help by just sharing this content, I put out a post yesterday about Roman Sterling, but we really want to get the information out there about these people. And if you see other people, if you see them, if you see Roman Storm, I forgot to mention this. So Roman Storm, they are officially retrying him. Horrible news. Like, I don't even know how, frankly, this is possible, but his first lawsuit cost $10 million. And they, were undecided. The jury came back and didn't really have a decision on 2 of the charges. And so the state has refiled. So that now he's going to go through another $10 million lawsuit. The problem is these other 2 charges carry up to 40 years in prison. So Roman actually, as it stands right now, has the worst situation of any of these crypto prisoners. So they all should be pardoned, by the way, without reservation. The 7 that I put up there, we should support all of them, and we should hope to drive this through. But Roman's situation is not only the largest potential sentence, but he doesn't have the means to fund his own lawsuit. He's had to raise money. This is not like this is another one of these situations where it's like the guy wasn't making fees. He wasn't holding these funds. He wasn't the primary actor involved. He was an open source developer. And so now he's being held responsible for the actions of other people. And he's in the Southern District of New York. And when we had Lauren Rodriguez on there, and she told me that the average case in the Southern District of New York is $13.5 million. And now he's going through this again. So if you could go to freeromanstorm.com, and if you have any extra funds and you're able, please contribute to his cause and promote all these guys. But let's put some extra emphasis and let's give some extra love to Roman Storm, because he's again, he's got a young child. Like this whole situation, 40 years. I don't know. It's just, I've gotten to know some of these people. Some of these people I already knew, and then I've gotten to know the others, or if not them directly, their spouses. And man, like these are people that I would want to hang out with, and you would probably want to hang out with. Like these are really quality people. The fact that they're in this situation at all is makes no sense. This isn't even like one of these, well, you know, he did a bad thing, but you know, he feels bad about it. It's like these people didn't do anything wrong. These people should not be here at all. It is an absolute travesty. So with that, I'm gonna play out When the Camera's Left, and we'll be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. Have a good one.
6 in the morning, he heard the boots, the radio man in the small New Hampshire town. 8 years they gave him for digital cash, 8 years for what he taught the small bills. You said the war was over, but Till said code is free speech. But the 7 still wake up in cages, and we don't forget when the cameras left. When the cameras left, when the cameras left, the cages stayed locked. Cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech. Walk them home. In the war or lose Congress. Roger 50 million in a gag, his voice in the vault. Sterling Goff 12 and a half on the black box code. Roman Storm 40 years on the table, retrial and fall. Keon built the wallet, Christmas Eve they came. William wrote privacy at 67, Lisbon to a cell. Ray Bank, the unbanked, deported schools in his name. Money transmitter laws in the Bank Secrecy Act. Wrote the privacy down, the case shut the fact. You pardon Ross? You said the rest were coming. Senate 52-49. The House about to flip when the cameras left. When the cameras left, when the cameras left, the cages stayed locked. Cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech. Walk them home. End the war or lose Congress. America won't lead the world in crypto. If it cages its innovators, the code outlives the warden. The signal can't be stopped. When the cameras left, when the cameras left, when the cameras left, when the cameras left, cages stayed locked, cages stayed locked. Pardon them all, pardon them all. Code is free speech. Walk them home. In the war or lose Congress. The code outlives the warden. Free Ian, free Roger, free Roman, free Storm, free Keon, free William, free Ray. When the cameras left, the code outlives the warden.